If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61, Vain? Mikage Ryo and Nagi rushed towards the opponent's half at the fastest speed. While advancing, Mikage Ryo glanced at Kira's position from the corner of his eye. As expected, Kira was still trapped by Tsurugi Zantetsu and the others, with no chance to defend. It was all just empty talk in the end. As long as we score this goal, the score will be completely equal. Then your advantage will be gone, and we will seize the momentum and win the match. Mikage Ryo wore a triumphant smile on his face as he and Nagi sprinted on the field, heading straight for Team Z's goal. On the other side, Kira also started moving. I won't let you pass. Tsurugi Zantetsu immediately unleashed his astonishing speed, attempting to restrict Kira just as he did before. Kira's speed had exceeded his expectations earlier, but if it was only a short burst of speed, Tsurugi Zantetsu had absolute confidence. Even if it was Chijiri Hyoma, he wouldn't be able to catch up. It was impossible for Kira to surpass his defense. However, in the moment he started his acceleration, Tsurugi Zantetsu realized that the distance between him and Kira was widening. Too slow. Only Kira's voice echoed in Tsurugi Zantetsu's ears, and at the same time, he seemed to feel the air moving on his face. No, it can't be. In that instant, with even more blinding speeds, Kira forcefully broke through Tsurugi Zantetsu's absolute defense. Full concentration breathing and thunderclap flash. The explosive force at full power brings an exaggerated initial acceleration. What kind of speed does this guy have? Tsurugi Zantetsu widened his eyes in astonishment, even subconsciously reaching out his hand to try to grab Kira, but he couldn't even come close. Tsurugi Zantetsu lost to the initial speed. Not to mention the other defenders who were defending together on the field, they couldn't even make a starting move. It can't be. This guy's first step surpassed Zantetsu. What a monster! But at this distance, he shouldn't be able to catch up in time. It's too far. Meanwhile, in the other half of the field, Nagi had already coordinated with Mikage Ryo and rushed towards Team Z's territory. If they scored this goal, the score would be equalized, and Team V, who already had the momentum, would gain the advantage. Nagi continued his dribble, while a familiar petite figure once again stood in his way. Narahaya Asahi. I won't let you pass. Narahaya Asahi said firmly. Why, I have no ill intentions, but why do people like you who lack talent insist on persevering? You can't defend against me at all. If it were me, I would have given up long ago. Nagi said with some confusion, while also not intending to waste time, preparing to directly get past Narahaya Asahi. He casually kicked the ball with his right foot, easily shifting Narahaya Asahi's center of gravity, and then suddenly flicked the ball with his left foot to change direction. Elastico. The feint was executed perfectly, once again shaking Narahaya Asahi's center of gravity. I won't give up easily, even if I lack talent. Narahaya Asahi shouted loudly, exerting all his strength, almost burning himself out, and forcefully planted his foot on the ground, maintaining his balance. He didn't lose his defensive position. Oh! Narahaya Asahi's actions surprised Nagi a bit. However, it was just a slight surprise. Even though Narahaya Asahi didn't lose his defensive position in the first moment, he couldn't change his posture and center of gravity anymore. He would still be bypassed. In the end, isn't it all in vain? Why create unnecessary trouble? Nagi pulled back with his left foot, smoothly bypassing Narahaya Asahi once again with a turn, executing the move flawlessly. At the same time, he created enough space for himself to shoot. Take them down, Nagi! Mikage Ryo shouted excitedly from the side, and Nagi raised his foot, preparing to shoot. In front of him, goalkeeper Iman Okihito's heartbeat quickened, as if it was about to explode. He knew that no matter what, he had to stop this shot. But could he really do it? Nagi was a monster. Take it! Nagi said softly. In that instant, his toe had already touched the football. Do you think this is all in vain? Kira's voice echoed in Nagi's ears. Nagi's eyes suddenly widened. For the first time, he showed a look of astonishment. Kira had already come up behind him and touched the ball at an even faster speed. Successful interference. The shot was disrupted, and Iman Okihito immediately rushed forward, cradling the ball in his arms. Successful defense. What? Mikage Ryo's entire body froze for a moment. He never expected Nagi's shot to be directly disrupted. He couldn't understand why Kira was in that position. When he turned his head to look at Tsurugi Zantetsu, who was chasing after him, Mikage Ryo realized what had happened. This guy, he bypassed Tsurugi Zantetsu's encirclement and quickly returned to defend. How is that possible? The smile on Mikage Ryo's face completely disappeared, and he loudly berated Tsurugi Zantetsu. You idiot, can't you even do this right? Although he said that, Mikage Ryo was well aware that this was not Tsurugi Zantetsu's mistake. Kira's strength exceeded their terrifying imagination. He went from the attacking end directly to the defensive end, catching up to Nagi. What kind of monster was this guy? Returning to the defense, defend. With the failed attack, Mikage Ryo could only organize his teammates to defend. It's okay, Nagi. It was just good luck. Focus on defending this round and seize the opportunity for the next. Nagi was momentarily stunned, still caught in a state of surprise. He didn't know how Kira had managed it, but he quickly snapped back to reality and immediately followed his teammates in defending. At the same time, he kept repeating to himself. Defend, defend, we must stop them. That was perfect timing, Kira. As he watched Kira arrive just in time to defend, Narahaya Asahi was on the verge of tears. If it weren't for Kira, Nagi would have scored. Kira patted his Asahi's shoulder and smiled. It's all thanks to you. It was your desperate defense that forced Nagi to make more moves, buying me that precious second. Leave the rest to me. Chapter 62, Cannon Shot. Let's seize the victory. Kira shifted his gaze to V-Team's goal. The outcome of this round's attack has already been determined. We need to show those big talkers what we're capable of. Yet, the winner will definitely be our Team Z. Kira's brilliant defensive play just now injected the entire team with renewed confidence, stabilizing their morale. Next, it was time to give those who had mocked them a harsh lesson. Iman Okuhito kicked off for V-Team, and Team Z launched their counterattack. Kira dribbled past midfield. Stop him! Mikage Ryo shouted anxiously. No matter what, they had to stop this goal. Got it! Tsurugi Zantetsu immediately stepped forward, attempting to block Kira and stop him in his tracks. However, Kira effortlessly evaded him, not even needing to make any fancy moves, relying solely on his speed. At this moment, Tsurugi Zantetsu was already exhausted from his previous all-out defense and was unable to produce the acceleration he had before. He posed no threat to Kira. Just as Tsurugi Zantetsu was bypassed, a tall figure appeared in front of Kira. Nagi. Nagi's forehead was covered in sweat, and his gaze became more determined. In his eyes, there was only Kira. Nagi stared fixedly at Kira, determined not to let him distract him with any feints this time. This time, he would lock down Kira for sure. The stalemate has lasted too long. It's time to break it. And at this moment, Kira raised his leg. The shooting motion. What? Mikage Ryo, who was ready to provide defensive support behind Nagi, was astonished. This is over 40 meters away. Is he trying to shoot? What a foolish dream. Nagi was also puzzled. From such a distance, Kira actually wanted to take a shot? Was it a feint? No, from this distance, a feint shot would never fool anyone. Kira truly wanted to shoot. Nagi, as a genius, keenly sensed the danger and immediately lunged forward, attempting to disrupt Kira's shot. But at first, he thought the opponent would choose to accelerate and maintain distance. Coupled with that moment of hesitation, he missed the opportunity. Kira has already taken the shot. Full concentration breathing. Thunderclap flash. And thunder swarm. In this instant, Kira seemed to feel as if time had slowed down. He concentrated all his strength into his right foot. Then, like an exploding bomb, it burst forth. Boom! As if the gods were enraged, a thunderous sound erupted on the field. The intense noise startled the other defenders of V-Team. Filled with power, the ball became like a heavy cannonball, hurtling forward. Even though Nagi possessed unparalleled reflexes and tried to extend his leg to block it in the first moment, he was utterly powerless. The ball raced past Nagi at a super speed. All he could feel was a fierce gust of wind sweeping past him. I must stop it! Mikage Ryo shouted, leaping up with all his might, also trying to disrupt this shot. But he couldn't reach it, which actually brought him some relief. The shot was too high. The angle of this shot was extremely high, leading Mikage Ryo to conclude that Kira was just attempting to deceive them with a forced shot, ultimately being a blind try. No, it wasn't. Kira simply said in a calm tone. This shot was the fusion of 3 skills. The thunderclap flash granted this shot a speed and power. And the thunder swarm made this shot unpredictable. Kira, in the instant of kicking the ball, controlled the rotation of the ball through the position of impact and adjustments in his shooting motion. It was an ultra-high-speed curveball. The ball directly approached the goal, and the high-speed rotation caused its trajectory in the air to change. Its target was none other than the blind spot of the goal. The goalkeeper made a desperate dive, but there was simply no way to track the trajectory of this shot. Goal. The ball continued to tear at the net like a wild beast, only gradually coming to a stop after the anger had completely dissipated. The entire stadium fell into a deathly silence. Mikage Ryo knelt on the ground, his smile from earlier completely vanished, as if his entire being had been drained of its soul. What exactly just happened? A shot from 40 meters away. Terrifying speed, eerie curve? Is it really something a human can achieve? What kind of monster is Kira, after all? At this moment, Mikage Ryo felt immense regret. He regretted the big words he had spoken before the match. Kira is a monster among monsters. Ryo, quickly counterattack. There's still time, we still have a chance. If we score 3 more goals, we can still win. Beside Mikage Ryo, Nagi hurriedly spoke, his competitiveness fully ignited, wanting to continue the game. But Kira's shot had almost crushed the fighting spirit of their entire team. Not only Mikage Ryo, but the other teammates had also completely lost the desire to resist. We can't possibly defeat that kind of monster. Saying that our V team would easily win was just talking big. That's enough, it doesn't matter anymore. We've already secured our spot in the next round. There's no need to push ourselves so hard. Funking damn it. On the other hand, Tsurugi Zantetsu, though unwilling, had no energy left to continue playing. Intense exertion had caused a cramp in his right leg, and he could barely even stand. On the opposite side, Kira was already surrounded by his teammates, who were cheering. This shot had already secured their victory. That was a shot from 40 meters away. In the control room, Ego Jinpachi watched the match and nodded in satisfaction. It seems there's only one true monster after all. The outcome of this game has already been decided. What a terrifying guy. Just how strong is Kira? He quickly defended against Nagi Sishio's shot and then proceeded to make an ultra-long-range shot. This guy is too frightening. Tairai Enri couldn't help but sigh. Yes, he even makes me feel scared. Ego pushed up his glasses. I'm afraid he could completely tear apart the entire blue lock. Soon, the final whistle of the match sounded. 5-2. That was the final score of the game. Before this, although Team Z had the advantage, Team V fought tooth, and the momentum of the game could have potentially turned in an instant. However, Kira completely killed the game with his offense and defense in the first half, extending the point difference to 2 goals. With little time left in the second half, it would be very difficult for Team V to equalize the score. Not only that, Mikage Ryo's mentality had collapsed, losing all fighting spirit. Tsurugi Zantetsu had to leave the field early due to cramping in his right leg caused by the intense sprinting. The other teammates, from start to finish, were barely involved in the game. They were merely supporting the big 3. After falling behind, they lost their fighting spirit because they believed they could secure their spot in the next round. The outcome of the final match had no real impact, so there was no need to push too hard. In the end, Team V was left with only Nagi, who was still holding his ground in battle. But even if he had extraordinary talent, he couldn't compete with the entire Team Z. The outcome of the match became predictable. No, no, no. Mikage Ryo knelt on the ground as if he had lost his soul, on the verge of tears. He had spoken the harshest words before the match, and in the end, he received the harshest blow. Tsurugi Zantetsu sat weakly by his side, the pain from the cramp just beginning to subside. He felt extremely helpless but had no solution. Nagi, on the other hand, stood there, allowing sweat to trickle down his cheeks. His heart pounded faster from the intense exercise, and his breathing became rapid. For the first time, Nagi felt a sense of unwillingness in his heart. It was his first experience of failure, and naturally, it didn't feel good. But after the unwillingness, Nagi's interest in football as a sport grew. He also became curious about what Kira had just said. On the other side, Team Z successfully advanced to the next round with a perfect record. After returning to the dormitory, everyone began to cheer and celebrate madly. We're the first in the group. A perfect record, we haven't lost a single game. Everyone's faces were filled with joyful smiles, and at that moment, Kira heard a series of system sounds in his ears. He immediately opened the system interface. Congratulations! You have earned 210 points. Host, Kira Ryosuke. Competitiveness points, 210. Current skills. Thunder Breath, Full Concentration Breathing LV3 Proficiency, 31.17%. Thunder Breath, Thunderclap Flash LV3 Proficiency, 23.7%. Thunder Breath, Rise Spirit LV2 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 100 points. Thunder Breath, Thunder Swarm LV1 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 50 points. Perhaps because the opponent in this match was stronger than any previous team, coupled with the gradual improvement in the strength of his Z-Team teammates, Kira earned significantly more points in this match compared to previous ones. After playing around with his teammates for a while, Kira immediately took out his phone and made a video call. The match was over, and he definitely had to report the work situation to his girlfriend as soon as possible. After just a few seconds, Riko's face appeared on the screen. How did it go, Kira? Finally receiving Kira's call, Riko's face blossomed with a bright smile. Although she asked that way, since Kira contacted her right after the match, Riko could pretty much guess the result of the game. Moreover, she could hear the loud noise coming from around Kira. Yeah, we won. Kira replied with a smile. Wait, is Kira talking to his girlfriend? SHH, don't disturb Kira. Quiet, everyone. The previously noisy crowd immediately quieted down and turned their heads to look at Kira. Hello, everyone. Although Riko felt a little embarrassed, she still greeted the others present. Unlike before, this time Riko naturally accepted the title of girlfriend. After all, now she was Kira's officially recognized girlfriend. Kira smiled and turned the screen around. The other 10 members of the team squeezed into a small screen together and waved to Riko. Hello. Thanks for the snacks. They were really delicious. Oh, by the way. Riko seemed to remember something and continued. Kira, did you finish the bear bento I made for you last time? Yeah, I finished it. Kira nodded, but his eyebrows twitched slightly. After all, it was the loving bento that Riko woke up at 4 a.m. to make for Kira. Naturally, he had to eat it obediently. How did it taste? Well, it was delicious. Kira swallowed and nodded. Beside him, the other teammates fell silent in that instant. Because on that day, they saw Kira, who was almost invincible, show a pained expression for the first time. And they also saw the bento that was supposed to have a bear-shaped design, but it looked more like a demon returned from hell, with its teeth and claws. However, they were smart enough to choose silence. That's good, that's delicious. Riko smiled happily. She then continued chatting with Kira, and the others consciously left the dormitory and headed to the training field. We've finished the first round of matches. Do we still have to train today? I feel a bit exhausted. I don't know, anywhere is fine. We just can't stay in the dormitory now. I'm afraid I'll smell something sour and lose my mind. What should we do next? If all else fails, let's sit here and count together. By the way, don't any of you have girlfriends? Shut up. Chapter 63, Hellish Physical Training. Damn it. At the same time, inside Team VS dormitory, Mikage Ryo had not yet recovered from his defeat and kept complaining. Beside him, the other members of the team looked at Mikage Ryo with puzzled expressions. Even if they lost the match, they had already successfully advanced, and whether they finished first or second didn't really matter. But for Mikage Ryo, the first failure in his career was an unacceptable stain. My undefeated record with Nagi has been broken. Damn it. Fuck you, Kira Ryosuke. Mikage Ryo shouted hysterically, while Nagi next to him remained calm. In his mind, Nagi kept recalling Kira's actions and words. In the lobby of building number 5, the players of the other 3 teams were crying with their heads in their hands, as they were about to leave the blue lock. Team Z advanced as the first place undefeated team in the group, Team V advanced as the second place team, while the remaining 3 teams were eliminated. In a corner of the lobby, Nico Iki stood with his arms crossed, leaning against the wall, looking at his teammates leaving the blue lock with a serious expression. Nico Iki, as the top scorer of Team Y, stayed in the blue lock. Since his match against Kira, he deeply realized his own inadequacies. In order to stay in the blue lock, he went all out in the subsequent matches and ultimately earned the qualification to stay in the blue lock. Although he felt a twinge of guilt for his teammates' departure, what he felt the most was unwillingness along with a desire for revenge. Although Team Y lost 2 matches in total, the pressure that Kira brought to Nico Iki was unmatched even by the big 3 of Team V. Kira Ryosuke, I will definitely seek revenge. On the other side of building number 5, in Team X's training field, Baro Shuai was still practicing. As the top scorer of Team X, he could continue to stay here. He didn't have any attachment to his departing teammates, so he didn't bid them farewell. For Baro Shuai, these people were nothing more than talentless trash. It was precisely because these people were useless that Team X didn't win a match. All his teammates were just his foils and servant. Kira Ryosuke, I will crush you and make you my subordinate. Baro Shuai clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth, as if an endless fury was spreading. Unbeknownst to him, Kira had become the enemy in the hearts of many. Soon, it was evening. After finishing dinner and chatting with Riko for a long time, Kira returned to the training field. Successfully advancing as the first-place team in the group was the first step for him. There was still a long way to go. According to the original plot, there would be a period of intense physical training and a relatively easy individual shooting assessment. After that would be the true second round of selection, the battle for recruits. Initially, 3 people would form a team and compete against teams with the same number of players. If they won, they could choose one person from the opposing team to join their own team. The 5-person team to be formed would advance, while the lone player would be eliminated. This not only tested football skills but also further stimulated the spirit of competition among individuals. Teammates from the previous round could potentially become enemies in this round, which highlighted the cruelty of the competition. I have to choose teammates at that time. I don't know who to choose. I'll decide when the time comes. Kira muttered to himself and then opened the system menu. Competitiveness points, 210 competitiveness points, 60. Rice Spirit LV2 -100 points. Rice Spirit LV3. Thunder Swarm LV1 -50 points. Thunder Swarm LV2. The skill upgrades and proficiency have been reset. Kira can continue practicing. You're still training even after completing the first round of matches. My legs are starting to feel weak. We can't let you train in secret. At that moment, the other members of Team Z also entered the training ground. Although they were all exhausted after today's battle, seeing Kira training again, they were inspired and joined him on the training field. Then let's train together. We should all advance together in the next round. But let's make it clear, the title of the world's #1 forward is definitely mine. You guys can strive for second place. The next day, early morning. The large screen lit up again, and the face of Ego appeared. Congratulations, all you raw talents. You have passed the first round of selection. Ego pushed his glasses up. But we still need to wait for the second round of selection. The matches in the other buildings haven't finished yet. What? We have to wait for them. Reiichi Jingo expressed his dissatisfaction. So annoying. During this waiting period for the second selection, you will obediently undergo training to enhance your physical skills. You are not allowed to use the ball during training. Violating this rule or failing to keep up with the training will be considered as quitting. What a joke. Why do we have to wait for the other buildings? Reiichi Jingo pointed at the screen, showing his extreme displeasure with Ego. You only won from the lowest ranked building #5. Don't get too proud, you pieces of trash. Ego said without any mercy. There's no need to continue with such low-level lies. At that moment, Ryosuke, who was nearby, also spoke up. Oh. Ego raised an eyebrow slightly. If you want us to undergo physical training, there's no need for such low-level lies. We are well aware that there are no higher-level buildings. All the buildings are building #5, and all the teams are VWXYZ. The rankings also hold no meaning. Ryosuke's expression was serious. Kira had told everyone about this. The so-called rankings held no significance. Even if Kira hadn't said it, many people would have guessed it. How did you come to this conclusion? Ego asked with curiosity. Because I don't believe that there can be over 200 people stronger than Kira. As Ryosuke finished speaking, everyone's gaze fell on Kira. Both Nagi and Barrow Shui were unexpectedly powerful. But even so, they have no comparability to Kira. So, everyone in the Team Z believes that there can't be over 200 people in the Blue Lock who can surpass Kira. That's how you came to that conclusion. Ego smiled, but in the next moment, his expression became very grave. Indeed, now that you all know, there's no need for me to hide it anymore. The rankings truly hold no meaning. I will now arrange high-intensity physical training for you, to completely crush your insignificant confidence. Even without rankings, you are just a bunch of trash, and there's no difference in that. Train obediently until I say stop. Great, bring it on. Facing Ego's threatening words, the members of Team Z became even more spirited. Very well, then come and see if you can keep up. After Ego finished speaking, the screen went dark. If I remember correctly, the physical training should last for 10 days. Kira thought to himself at this moment. In these 10 days, we can't touch the ball, so it will be difficult to practice the skills of Rice Spirit and Thunder Swarm. I can only rely on the practice space to improve. However, we can still train our physical fitness in normal circumstances. This is a good opportunity to improve ourselves. Please have all members of Team Z proceed to the fitness room for physical testing and training. At that moment, a cold broadcast sounded in the room, and everyone could only follow the instructions and go to the designated location to begin a series of physical training. High-speed long-distance running, flexibility training, vertical jump training. The intensity of these exercises was extremely high. This training not only tested their physical endurance but also their willpower. In a state of extreme exhaustion, an ordinary person might even lose their appetite temporarily, even though this was the time when they needed to eat to replenish energy. They might end up vomiting soon after. However, the level of training was not that overwhelming for the members of Team Z at this point. Almost every day, they trained with Kira at a very high intensity, so they had already adapted to this training style. Compared to that, the physical training arranged by Ego was not that significant. Even Isagi Yoichi, who had the low physical fitness, could manage to hold on. The 10 days flew by, and the members finally received the notification that the physical training had ended. Gather in the hall. It was just 6 a.m., and Ego's voice echoed through the broadcast. Damn, it's finally over. Reiichi Jingo shouted with excitement. Although almost all members of Team Z could handle this high-intensity training, what they longed for the most at this moment was to get on the field and compete. At this time, Kira also opened his own system interface. Host, Kira Ryosuke. Competitiveness points, 50. Current skills. Thunder Breath, Full Concentration Breathing LV3 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 150 points. Thunder Breath, Thunderclap Flash LV3 Proficiency, 73.7%. Thunder Breath, Rice Spirit LV3 Proficiency, 50.3%. Thunder Breath, Thunder Swarm LV2 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 100 points. After this period of training, Kira's proficiency in all skills has improved significantly. Both Thunder Swarm and Full Concentration Breathing have reached 100%, and he will soon be able to further upgrade them. During this time, he could only earn 20 points through training each day, and he prioritized exchanging them for training time in the practice space to practice his skills. When there are upcoming matches scheduled, he can upgrade his skills. Everyone, get ready. Kira closed the system interface and led all members of Team Z out of the room, heading towards the main hall. It was a spacious pentagonal hall, with doors embedded in the 5 walls, gathering players from 5 different buildings. There were only a total of 125 players who made it to this stage. More than half of the people had already left the Blue Lock, and those who remained didn't have much joy on their faces. Instead, they appeared exhausted, as the 10 consecutive days of intense physical training had pushed them to the brink of collapse. And that was Ego's intention. Only the members of Team Z, including Kira, seemed relatively spirited. Hey, it's just as Kira said. Isagi Yoichi's gaze swept across the people around him. Just as Kira had mentioned earlier, there were no higher floors or rankings. Everyone hailed from Building 5. Well, you raw gems, you've really endured the training this time. The central screen lit up, and the slender figure of Ego appeared before everyone. Now, here present are the 125 passers from the first round of selection, coming from the 5 buildings. Of course, some of you have already noticed that there are no participants from higher level buildings among you. While saying these words, Ego's gaze seemed to linger on Kira for a moment. Then he went on to talk about forwards and selfish players. After a few minutes, he finally shifted the topic back on track. You will now proceed to the second round of selection. The second round consists of 5 levels, and only by passing the current level can you advance to the next round. Once you pass the second round of selection, you will have the opportunity to train with the world's top players selected by me. For those who are mentally prepared, go to that door alone. The first level is a solo battle, and once you enter, there is no turning back. Following Ego's guidance, the gaze of the crowd turned to a pitch-black door, resembling a hellish trap awaiting their voluntary entry. The words second round of selection were boldly printed on the door. Chapter 64, But I refuse. The large screen immediately went dark, and the crowd began to discuss among themselves. But at that moment, one person took the lead and made a move. He had a stern face and a tall, slender figure, but his muscle definition was very prominent. He placed the football that had been set aside at his feet and then kicked it, sending a perfectly high arcing shot across the sky of the hall. And at that moment, the same person kicked the ball again, this time with a low arcing shot. The 2 shots sent the ball soaring through the air and met each other with incredible precision. What? This action left almost everyone present dumbfounded, but Kira calmly shifted his gaze onto that person. He was well aware of that person's identity. Itoshi Rin, the younger brother of midfield prodigy Itoshi Sae, was known as the most outstanding player in terms of overall ability within the Blue Lock in the original story. However, in Kira's eyes, he was also a deranged individual. In the original story, he came to the Blue Lock with the goal of surpassing his older brother, Itoshi Sae. He possessed an unreasonable arrogance that ordinary people couldn't comprehend and looked down upon the existence of others. Of course, he had the ability to back up his pride. Open the door, the warm-up is over, Itoshi Rin said coldly, and then he walked into the door with an indifferent expression on his face. Interesting. At the same time, Itoshi Sae was at home, repeatedly watching several footage. They were the match footage of Kira in the Blue Lock. Earlier, he had accidentally come across the match recording between Kira and Team X, which piqued his interest. He then asked his agent to obtain all the match footage of Kira from the first round of selection through the Football Association president. Itoshi Sae had been watching them for a long time, something he had never done before. Forwards, defenders, midfielders. This guy is practically an all-rounder on the field. He completely dominates the game. It's fascinating. I've never seen a player with this kind of ability. Itoshi Sae muttered to himself, his gaze unwavering from the screen. If I could play a game with this person, it might be very interesting. Perhaps only he would be able to perfectly receive my passes. Back at the Blue Lock, after bidding farewell to his teammates, Kira also stepped into the gate. Following the instructions, he quickly arrived at an open square field. Suddenly, a humanoid holographic projection appeared in front of Kira, and the image of a goal was projected onto the wall. This was the latest technology used in the Blue Lock Man. It was an artificial intelligence holographic system that recorded data from world-class goalkeepers. It could replicate their saving movements, and it was more than just a holographic projection. Microchips were installed inside the Blue Lock's footballs, allowing for realistic physical collisions when they came into contact with the projection. This was the first stage of the second round of selection, a one-on-one battle. The objective was to score 100 goals within 90 minutes, and as the number of goals increased, the difficulty would also increase. However, this was not a challenge for Kira. On the contrary, it was an opportunity for practice. Combining skills dribbling, shooting, scoring. Kira was like a shooting machine, continuously shooting the ball into the net. In the control room, Tairi Henry couldn't help but exclaim. Although she had already witnessed Kira's incredible strength, his speed still exceeded her expectations. He's completely at ease. Ego shifted his gaze to the screens showing the other participants. Most of them seemed to struggle because Blue Lock Man itself was already on par with elite goalkeepers, not to mention the increasing difficulty ahead. Only Kira appeared extremely relaxed, as if in his eyes, this was not a test but merely practice. Although his philosophy clashes with mine, I'm actually quite looking forward to his performance in the future. Unbeknownst to them, Kira had already completed the assessment. The holographic projections disappeared, and the tightly closed gate opened once again, revealing the location of the second stage at the end of the corridor. Kira passed through the corridor and entered another hall. Embedded in the walls were screens displaying a line of text. Form teams of 3 and continue forward. This was the true content of the second round assessment. However, Kira looked around at his surroundings. At this moment, there was only Kira in the room. It seems I finished a bit too quickly. Kira sighed and found a seat to sit down. A few minutes later, the entrance door opened again, and a familiar figure walked in. Idoji Rin. What a boring. Idoji Rin muttered to himself as he walked straight into the hall. I have to form teams of 3? What a waste of my time. I still have to wait for those insignificant ants. While Idoji Rin was speaking to himself, he suddenly noticed the presence of Kira and his eyebrows twitched slightly. He instinctively believed that he was the first rank and never expected Kira to appear before him. Idoji Rin glanced at the name on the badge on Kira's shoulder but didn't pay much attention. In his eyes, everyone else was just insignificant. At that moment, the third person also walked in. He was tall, had long hair, and was muttering to himself. I suppose it's quite stylish. Kira's gaze shifted to that person Ryuji Yubei. Hey, it's just us now. Let's go straight ahead and not waste my time. Seeing Kira and Ryuji Yubei's presence, Idoji Rin directly commanded them in a commanding tone. He didn't care who his teammates were. It just so happened that there were 3 people present, so he was ready to form a team. What a stylish statement. Ryuji Yubei nodded, unfazed by Idoji Rin's words. He had no objections to teaming up with him. At that moment, Kira, who was standing beside, smiled and spoke up. When did I agree to team up with you? What did you say? Idoji Rin's eyebrows twitched again, and this time he finally looked directly at Kira. Although there was no change in his expression, he seemed to be getting annoyed. You heard what I just said. Kira stood up and locked eyes with Idoji Rin. Their gazes clashed. Although Kira was generally an easygoing person with good relationships with those around him, he had no patience for Idoji Rin, who was arrogant to the extreme and had no idea about respect. What a stylish conversation. Ryuji Yubei shifted his gaze to Kira. The word stylish was always on his lips. Just insignificant ants. Idoji Rin took a step forward as if he wanted to devour Kira alive. What's the matter? And who are you? You don't even have basic manners. Maybe elementary school football is more suitable for you. Kira smiled and retaliated. Veins bulged on Idoji Rin's forehead, like worms about to crawl out of his skin. But just when the tension reached its peak, the entrance door opened again, and the fourth person, Tokimitsu Aoshi, walked in. Let's go. Idoji Rin had no intention of wasting time on Kira. He led Ryuji Yubei and a bewildered Tokimitsu Aoshi and prepared to move to the next area. Before leaving, Idoji Rin turned his head and cast a piercing gaze at Kira. If I meet you on the field, I will definitely kill you. Remember those words. Oh? You can come and give it a try. Kira simply responded with a smile. Soon, Idoji Rin left the hall with the other 2, and more people arrived one after another. However, they were from different teams and didn't know Kira, so they didn't team up with him. After a while, Kira finally encountered 2 familiar faces. Nagi and Mikage Ryo appeared. Kira Ryosuke. Seeing Kira's arrival, Mikage Ryo's mouth twitched slightly, and there was a hint of hostility in his gaze. He was fully prepared to completely ignore the other person. He had already regarded Kira as his archenemy, the one who ended his and Nagi's winning streak. On the other hand, Nagi was completely different. He walked up to Kira and greeted him proactively. Hey, Kira, you're here so soon. Just lucky, I guess. Kira also politely greeted him. Are you waiting for someone to team up with? Nagi continued to ask, and Kira nodded. Then why don't we team up together? Nagi extended an invitation. After the match against Team Z, he was curious about Kira. Hey, Nagi, are you really going to team up with that guy? Mikage Ryo's expression was filled with doubt, and he didn't understand Nagi's decision. Yet. Nagi nodded earnestly. TCH, if that's what you want, Nagi, then I don't mind. Mikage Ryo shrugged his shoulders. Although he was a bit dissatisfied with Kira, he didn't plan to oppose Nagi since it was his decision. But let me make it clear. While I know your skills are decent, you absolutely cannot disrupt the chemistry between me and Nagi. However, at that moment, Kira spoke up. Sorry, but I plan to leave at least one spot for my original teammate. If it's just you, Nagi, then it's possible. To be honest, Kira didn't really want to team up with someone like Mikage Ryo. On the one hand, Mikage Ryo was one of the most mentally unstable individuals in the Blue Lock. On the other hand, Mikage Ryo had lost the match but still carried an arrogant attitude and a sense of superiority, considering himself superior to others. TCH, whatever. They're just dead weight anyway. Since you. But before Mikage Ryo could finish speaking, Nagi nodded directly. Okay, then I'll team up with you. Hey, Nagi, you were supposed to team up with me, right? Mikage Ryo was completely stunned, and it took him a few seconds to react. He then immediately looked at Nagi with excitement, while the latter calmly replied. In the last match, Kira was the best player on the field, better than all the others combined. So, I want to try playing with Kira. But our teaming up was definite. Sweat started to bead on Mikage Ryo's forehead, visibly showing his nervousness. Ryo, you taught me football, and it was our goal to become the best in the world. But we lost, we're no longer the strongest. So I want to keep pushing forward, I want to play with Kira. Nagi's expression was very serious. Although his tone was calm, he seemed to have already made up his mind. After losing that match, Nagi had been contemplating Kira's words. He had been following Mikage Ryo all along, influenced by him to believe that the other teammates were just supporting. But after the battle with Kira and hearing his words, Nagi began to doubt his own beliefs. Kira was not only powerful himself, but he could also bring out the unexpected potential of teammates who were considered untalented. Furthermore, Kira's ideas and the Blue Lock's philosophy were somewhat different. Nagi wanted to know which side was right. Go ahead and team up with that guy. Do as you please. Mikage Ryo's face darkened. But in that instant, he lifted his head, and his gaze fell upon Kira. In his eyes, flames of hatred burned. Kira didn't have any fondness for Mikage Ryo, but he didn't mind accepting this silent challenge. Soon, more and more people walked in, and familiar faces became increasingly present. Isagi Yoichi, Bakura Meguru, Kunigami Ryosuke, and Chidori Hyoma arrived. You guys are so slow. I've been waiting for you for over half an hour. Kira greeted them with a smile. Kira, you're too fast. How long did it take you to score 100 goals? Are we forming teams of 3 here? Hey, Nagi? What are you doing here too? Where's Ryo? Chapter 65, Becoming Enemies. Quickly, Kira informed the other 4 about teaming up with Nagi. We happen to have 4 people, which means if we assign one person to you, Kira, the remaining individuals can form a team. As Isagi Yoichi spoke, he looked around. So, how should we allocate the rest of us? Well, I have my own idea. At that moment, Bakura Meguru, who was standing nearby, suddenly raised his hand and said, I don't intend to be on the same team as Kira. The previous matches were mostly about Kira showing off. This time, I'm prepared to perform on my own. Upon hearing Bakura Meguru's words, Isagi Yoichi fell into contemplation. He couldn't rely on Kira all the time, he had to grow on his own. With Kira's guidance, his own training, and the recent shooting assessment, Isagi Yoichi had used his spatial perception ability to comprehend a new technique shooting immediately upon receiving the ball, known as the direct shot. Although his progress was slightly slower than in the original work, Isagi Yoichi had indeed successfully grasped this technique. However, he hadn't had the opportunity to use it yet. His mindset was similar to Bakura Meguru's. He wanted to see what level he could reach without Kira and what he could accomplish. Then I'll team up with Bakura, Isagi Yoichi said very seriously. I also want to see my true potential, though I know I'm still far behind you, Kira. I'll do my best to catch up. Kira looked at Isagi Yoichi with a firm expression and nodded. Although Isagi Yoichi didn't have much chance to showcase his abilities in the first round of selections, he trained intensively with Kira every day, receiving guidance from him. Both his physical fitness and technical skills had advanced further than in the original timeline. He would definitely shine in the upcoming matches. I also want the opportunity to see who's the fastest person in the Blue Lock. Chidori Hyoma also smiled and bumped fists with Kira, thus confirming the 2 teams. Isagi Yoichi, Bakura Meguru, and Chidori Hyoma formed one team, while Kira, Nagi, and Kunigami Ryosuke teamed up. Kira turned his head to look at Kunigami Ryosuke. In the original work, he was defeated in this round. Although Kunigami Ryosuke's strength was not bad, he still lost to stronger opponents. Moreover, in the blue lock, there was a round called the revival match, where eliminated individuals entered to compete for the sole revival spot. Although Kunigami Ryosuke successfully passed the revival match, he was ultimately corrupted by the ideology of ego. He started off righteous and honorable, but later became selfish and selfing. Kunigami Ryosuke had a good relationship with Kira, and he was generally a very kind person. Being on Kira's team could change that. Well, let's get ready. Let's go. The six of them passed through the gate together and headed to the next room. Inside the hall, Ryo sat on the ground with a gloomy expression, his eyes filled with a sense of loss, as if he had lost his soul. But at that moment, a figure appeared in front of him. It seems like your teammate was taken away by Kira, that genius with terrifying ball control skills. Ryo looked up and recognized the person's identity. Nico Iki. What's it to you? Ryo just raised his head slightly, his gaze locked onto the person in front of him. Don't you want to seek revenge on Kira Ryosuke? As Nico Iki spoke, the flames of anger ignited once again in Ryo's eyes. It wasn't just because of Kira, but also because Nagi abandoned him. That feeling of resentment continued to brew in Ryo's heart. I want Nagi to know that following that guy was a mistake. Ryo stood up and replied with a cold tone. And what about the third person? He's right here. There's another person who despises Kira Ryosuke to the core. Nico Iki smiled faintly, turning his head to the side. Baro Shuai. Kira and the others had arrived in another room. At this moment, there was only one team present in this space. It was Rin and his two teammates. Do you ants only know how to waste time? Rin scanned the crowd with an incredibly arrogant gaze, finally fixing his eyes on Kira. The latest Blue Lock rankings have been announced, and the order is determined by the order of completion in the first stage. Just then, the image of Ego appeared on the screen on the wall. The numbers on each person's electronic badge on their shoulders changed. The ranking on Kira's shoulder became 1. If you think it's a waste of time, then why are you only in second place? Kira retorted with a smile. Isagi Yoichi, who was standing beside them, nervously swallowed saliva. After all, Rin exuded a strong sense of oppression, but Kira seemed very relaxed. Ants, this is just a boring segment. Rin's mouth twitched. Cough, cough. At that moment, Ego coughed lightly, interrupting their conversation. This is the third stage. Among the 3-person teams that have been formed, battles will be conducted in the form of small-scale matches. The goalkeepers of each team will be the Blue Lock man. The team that scores 5 goals first will win. Then, the winning team will select one person from the opponents to form a new 4-person team, proceeding to the next stage. The first team to have 5 members will advance, while the person who is not chosen by any team will be eliminated. This is the decisive battle to conquer the enemy. Ego paused for a moment, then pointed his finger at the screen. Also, you are free to choose your opponents, but it will only be valid if both teams agree. Ego quickly finished explaining the rules and was about to close the projection when Kira reached out his hand. Mr. Ego, I have one more question. What is it? Ego pushed his glasses up. Regarding exchanging goals for points, it will still be valid in the upcoming stages, right? Ego remained silent for a few seconds but nodded. Of course, it's still valid. However, due to the special nature of this competition, if you want to use the points to exchange for a chance to go outside, you'll have to wait until this round of matches is over. That's fine. Kira smiled. Meanwhile, Riko's team had also successfully qualified for the round-robin tournament. The matches on their side were about to begin. Kira had promised Riko that he would go watch the matches in person, so he had to fulfill that commitment. That's all for now. I wish you good luck. Ego looked at Kira for a few seconds and then closed the screen. Kira turned his head to look at Rin. He remembered that before their teams were formed, there should have been 2 other teams that entered this room earlier. However, it was evident that they had all heard of Rin's name and witnessed his strength during their previous gathering, so they gave up on facing them. So, which of your 2 teams will meet their doom? But it doesn't really matter to me. I don't care who the opponent is, the result will be the same. You're just a bunch of random people. I just want to win quickly and continue forward. Rin stood up, his gaze reaching the pinnacle of disdain. This guy is annoying. Bakaram Meguru clasped his hands behind his head and said with a smile, but an excited expression appeared on his face. Isagi Yoichi was the same, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. Hey, your opponents are us. And at that moment, the entrance gate opened once again, and 3 familiar figures walked in. Nico Ikki, Mikage Ryo, and Baro Shuai. At this moment, these 3 individuals stared at Kira with intense hostility, all yearning to exact revenge on him. This time, I will definitely defeat you. You're just a follower. Let me tell you, I am the king on the football field. Nagi, I will make you understand that teaming up with me, Ryo, is absolute. The 3 of them erupted with a powerful fighting spirit, as if they wanted to consume Kira entirely. Well, that works out perfectly. You can be our opponents in the first round. Kira smiled as he spoke. The match was set, and Kira's team would face Ryo's team, while Yoichi and the others chose Rin's team as their opponents in the first round. Following the instructions, Kira and the other 6 individuals arrived at the designated field, underwent identity verification, and received teams of different colors. Kira's team was the white team, while their opponents were the red team. Once everything was prepared, they stepped into the new competition field. Due to the reduced number of players, the size of the football field had also been reduced. Kira looked at the 3 members of the red team, Ikki, Ryo, and Shuai. In the original work, they were originally 3 completely different teams, but now they had formed a team due to a shared emotion, their hatred for Kira. In a sense, this team of theirs was like an Avengers seeking revenge against Kira. The red team is surprisingly well suited. Ryosuke commented from the side. While Ikki and Ryo possessed offensive abilities, they both leaned more towards organizing the attack. On the other hand, Shuai was someone who needed all his teammates to revolve around him. He would never pass the ball to others and insisted on being the one to finish the attacks. It was precisely because of his personality that his previous team had mediocre results and frequently experienced internal strife. But now, his teammates had been replaced by the more selfless players, Ikki and Ryo. However, no matter what, the ones who will emerge victorious in the end will be us. Kira replied. Yes, we must win. Nagi responded in a calm tone. Ryosuke also wore an expectant smile on his face. Let's settle this fair. Third, the match between the red team and the white team is about to begin, with the white team taking the first kickoff. As the whistle sounded, Kira and his team launched their offensive. Kira quickly dribbled the ball, directly approaching the opponent's half. The one marking him closely was Ryo. I will make Nagi realize that choosing you was the biggest mistake. Ryo stood in front of Kira, not giving him any chance to pass. At this moment, his focus intensified as he carefully observed Kira's movements while maintaining a certain distance to prevent him from easily breaking through. After 10 days of training, Ryo had improved his skills significantly. He had always regarded Kira as his imaginary enemy, constantly studying his videos, hoping to seek revenge someday. But he never expected the opportunity for revenge to come so soon. Well, do your best. Meanwhile, Kira had already made his move. Thunderclap flash. In the next moment, Kira's body leaned forward abruptly, like a bullet shot from a gun, charging forward. Damn it! Ryo shouted in frustration. He felt that Kira's speed had become even faster than before, but the initial distance intentionally given allowed Ryo some reaction time. He immediately leaned backward, shifting his weight backward, in order to keep up with Kira's speed. However, in an instant, Kira suddenly stopped his forward movement, swiftly turned around, and used one foot to flick the ball, instantly creating distance between him and Ryo. He then accelerated again and directly bypassed him. The combination of explosive speed and superb dribbling skills made it impossible for anyone to defend Kira one-on-one. But at that moment, Kira caught a glimpse of a figure appearing on his side. Nico Ikki. Ikki possessed excellent ball sense and vision. In the moment when Kira evaded Ryo, Ikki sensed his attacking route and attempted to intercept from Kira's blind spot. However, Kira reacted even faster. He turned around once again, shielding the ball with his back, not giving Ikki any opportunity. At the same time, he observed his surroundings and immediately noticed Nagi in an unmarked position. He quickly passed the ball, with a high arc. It was a deliberate move by Kira, making it easier to avoid the opponent's interference. And Nagi would definitely be able to receive it. It's a challenging pass, but I can receive it. Nagi leaped high, using his foot to hook the ball in extraordinary control. He then adjusted his body mid-air and took a shot. Goal. 1-0. The white team scored first. Chapter 66, No Effect. Nice play. Nagi and Kira high-fived each other. Although it was their first time fighting side by side, they displayed a remarkably high level of coordination. Your ball control is impressive. Kira also praised Nagi. His unique and extraordinary ball control was something no one in the Blue Lock could achieve. Damn it! Watching Kira and Nagi successfully coordinate their play, Ryo burned with anger. Calm down. Ikki comforted him from the side while calmly analyzing the situation. Kira is the playmaker of their team. Only he has the passing ability. We just need to. Enough with the nonsense. At that moment, Shuai interrupted Ikki's words. He lifted his head and looked down on the three people in front of him. As long as I tear apart their defense, all you have to do is keep passing the ball to me and let me score. The victory condition is simply who scores 5 goals first. As long as we achieve that, it's enough. Even when facing Ikki and Ryo, Shuai didn't consider them a threat. What an arrogant guy. Have you forgotten how your team lost to us? Ryo sneered. What does that have to do with you? Besides, my teammates were simply useless, Shuai retorted mercilessly. What are you saying? Calm down. For now, let's just follow Shuai's words. Ikki immediately stepped in between them, trying to persuade both parties. After all, Shuai's attacking ability is indeed the best among us. Although Ryo was extremely displeased with Shuai's arrogant personality, he actually agreed to some extent. He had witnessed Shuai's abilities. If we set the maximum score for attacking ability as 100 points, Ikki would score around 80 points, Ryo himself would score around 90 points, and Shuai would reach 110 points. Although Ryo was highly versatile and excelled in various aspects, making him the perfect puzzle piece in the team, he didn't have any particularly outstanding areas. This always put him at a disadvantage when facing truly talented players. Although Ryo verbally agreed to support Shuai's tactics, his mind was still not at ease. Even if they won this match, it wouldn't be enough. What Ryo wanted was to surpass Kira in front of Nagi, to prove that his strength surpassed that of Kira. He had to find a way to defeat Kira. With little time for further contemplation, it was now the red team's turn to attack. Ryo quickly dribbled the ball past the halfway line while carefully observing the current situation. Although the field has become smaller and the number of players has been reduced to 3, it appears more spacious. The attacking space has become larger, and there are more options available. As he analyzed the situation, he looked ahead, where Kira stood like a solid wall blocking his way. Damn it! Ryo muttered to himself, vividly remembering Kira's formidable defensive ability from their previous match. Just having him standing in front of Ryo exerted immense pressure on him. Like a beast waiting for its prey to fall into the trap. Although Ryo desired to surpass Kira in a one-on-one situation, he instinctively chose to pass the ball to Shuai. At that moment, Shuai was facing Ryosuke. While Shuai had powerful offensive skills, Ryosuke's defense was excellent, and he had a good physical condition. In the original story, he had caused significant trouble for Shuai on the defensive end. Shuai immediately prepared to launch an attack as soon as he received the ball. However, in that instant, Kira, who was originally marking Ryo, suddenly appeared behind Shuai and swiftly intercepted the ball using his explosive speed with thunderclap flash. In this small-scale football match with fewer players, double teaming becomes much more challenging compared to formal matches. Once you engage in double teaming, it's easy for the opposing team to have one player left unmarked, essentially resulting in 3 sets of one-on-one situations. It can be said that the fewer the number of participants in the match, the more difficult it is to execute double teaming tactics. But for Kira, this was not a problem, instead, it was an advantage. A smaller field meant faster transitions between offense and defense, allowing Kira's versatility to shine through. And most importantly, Kira knew very well that Shuai would never pass the ball. He was always the one to finish the attacks. This meant that the other members of Kira's team could temporarily abandon their defensive assignments and directly double-team Shuai. Damn it! Shuai cursed, wanting to catch up to Kira from behind. However, Kira had already used Thunder Swarm and successfully scored a brilliant curved shot. 2-0. Hey, Shuai, you should have passed the ball back in the first place. Ryo was extremely dissatisfied with Shuai's recent decision. When Kira double-teamed him, Shuai should have passed the ball back because Ikki was left unmarked in that situation. What nonsense are you talking about? Why should I pass the ball to the likes of you? As a servant, just focus on doing your own job. You arrogant fool! Have you forgotten how we lost to them before? Ryo and Shuai erupted into a heated argument, while Iki remained silent on the side, his mind spinning rapidly. Kira left Iki unmarked to double-team Shuai. He knows very well that Shuai won't pass the ball. Although Shuai has good attacking abilities, it's impossible for him to handle this level of defense on his own. Kira is just toying with us like puppets. Damn it, we must find a way. At least, in the future, we can't rely on Shuai as the primary attacking option. Soon, Iki pulled Ryo aside and shared his thoughts, realizing that they also needed to make an impact on the offensive end. Otherwise, the opponents would focus solely on Shuai. I understand, Ryo nodded, turning his gaze towards the half of the field where Kira was positioned. At this moment, he was filled with frustration. He had wanted to prove his worth in front of Nagi, but in the end, he was still tightly oppressed by Kira. This won't do. I have to win against Kira at least once. And in the heart of Ryo, a bold idea began to form. As the red team launched another attack, Ryo dribbled the ball forward. Hey, pass it to me. Shuai was struggling to keep up with Ryosuke's marking and raised his hand, signaling for the ball. However, this time, Ryo didn't choose to pass. Instead, he directly focused his gaze on Kira. Ryo was born into a billionaire family, always getting what he wanted. This subconscious belief led him to think that whatever he desired would become his, fueling a strong possessiveness. But Kira had taken away his victory and the treasured Nagi, driving Ryo into a state of complete obsession. He wanted to show Nagi that he was a more important existence than Kira. To achieve that, he decided to use a tactic he had never used before. Today, I will definitely surpass you. Ryo shouted loudly and immediately charged forward with the ball, informing everyone present that he was going to face Kira in a 1v1. At the same time, in his mind, he replayed the difficult moves Kira had made in the previous match, and his body involuntarily followed suit. Since his original abilities were unable to defeat Kira, he would become someone like Kira. He tightened his leg muscles and sprinted at the fastest speed towards Kira's side. But just as Kira was about to take action, Ryo suddenly made an abrupt stop, flicked the ball, and turned around, accelerating for the second time. This is my new tactic. Chameleon! Ryo excitedly shouted, believing that he had successfully replicated Kira's move. In the original work, Ryo only realized this technique before the third selection round. However, now, due to the intense pressure and sense of crisis brought by Kira, Ryo had evolved one step ahead. Only by becoming like the enemy can one defeat the enemy. Isn't that Kira's move? Ryosuke was astonished. The combination move just now wasn't particularly difficult, the sense of rhythm was crucial. Yet Ryo managed to replicate even Kira's excellent rhythm. Ryo truly belonged to the realm of geniuses. He could feel the gaze of everyone around him focused on him, and a smile appeared on his face. I finally got past him. At this moment, there was no one in front of Ryo except for the simulated goalkeeper, Blue Lock Man. He was determined to succeed. Watch me closely, Nagi. In that instant, Ryo felt that Nagi's gaze was also fixed on him. No, that's not right. It was only at this moment that Ryo noticed that Nagi's attention was not on him, but behind him. Simultaneously, the hair on the back of Ryo's neck stood on end, as if a terrifying presence was lurking behind him. Kira Ryosuke. You did well, but I'm sorry, it's of no use. Kira's calm voice sounded from behind Ryo, and then a menacing figure appeared beside him. How is this possible? Ryo's pupils dilated, and his voice trembled. He thought that by using the same move, he could get past Kira. But he didn't know that even if he imitated it flawlessly, he was still just an imitation. Despite Ryo's unexpected ability to mimic, Kira could still discern the technique he intended to use from his movements. Kira had intentionally given Ryo the illusion of success, and then, when Ryo let his guard down for a moment, he used his speed and physical abilities to make the interception. This can't be. Iki stood on the side, dumbfounded. Ryo couldn't get past Kira even with that level. He understood very well that Ryo had done exceptionally well just now and had indeed created ample space for himself. However, it was all meaningless. He was still within Kira's defensive range. The latter burst out from behind and caught up to him, making the interception. Ryo didn't even have a chance to make a few steps forward. Is this guy even more terrifying than in the first selection round? And with just a moment of distraction, Kira had already dribbled the ball into the red team's half. Goal! The ball went in. 10 minutes later, the match ended. The three members of the red team sat exhausted on the grass, unable to make any progress on the offensive end, and on the defensive end, they were unable to stop Kira. The opposing team seemed to get whatever they wanted, and quickly ended the game with a score of 5-0. The revenge battle for the three of them made them acutely aware of the gap in their abilities, to the point of almost feeling hopeless. After the match, it was time to select one person from the losing team to join the winning team as a teammate. The loser was like a trophy for the winners. How about choosing Shuai? He has a tall stature and can be effective on the offensive end, Ryosuke pondered for a moment and said. I think it should be Ryo. He's more well-rounded, Nagi calmly replied. However, both of them cast their gaze upon Kira, leaving the final decision to him. Kira, what do you think? I already have a suitable choice in mind. Kira answered with ease, then walked directly to a person among the red team. Then come with us as part of our team, Nico Ikki. What? Ikki's eyes widened, filled with surprise. He hadn't expected that he would be chosen by Kira. His offensive skills and physical abilities were far inferior to Shuai's, and he lacked the versatility and practicality of Ryo. Ikki believed that he was the last person who could be selected. Let's go, we're getting ready to move to the next room. Chapter 67, Feeling Tired? Kira, why did you choose me? Walking through the corridor towards the next area, Ikki looked at Kira with some confusion. He was very curious about why Kira had chosen him. Because you are the most suitable choice, Kira answered with a smile. Shuai has a very selfish personality, and his style of playing football greatly damages the team atmosphere. So I immediately ruled him out. Ryo has strong overall abilities, but his mindset is easily influenced by the things around him, and he can't maintain a high level of focus on the field. As for you, Ikki, although your physical abilities and offensive skills are lacking, you possess a big picture perspective and excellent ball control. Moreover, you're easier to get along with in terms of personality. Compared to the other two, you are more suitable to be a teammate. Kira spoke the truth. Among the three members of the red team, Ikki was the one who was more suited to be a teammate. I see. Ikki nodded, but at the same time, he turned his head and focused his gaze on Kira. Although he really didn't want to admit it, Ikki had fought against Kira twice and was well aware of his strength. Kira was an absolute monster. Ikki also wanted to take this opportunity to learn from Kira and understand how he had become so powerful. Soon, the group arrived in a place that could only be reached by forming a team of 4. Like the previous building, the facilities here were well equipped, including a cafeteria, bathhouse, and training gym. It seems like we're the first ones here. Kira looked around. At this moment, there was no one else in this space. After all, they had swiftly ended the battle with a clean 5-0 victory without taking too much time. However, shortly after their arrival, another team walked in. Ryosuke immediately cast his gaze with some anticipation, hoping that Yoichi's team would also advance. At first glance, he saw Meguro return, his face lighting up with great joy. However, as a few more people entered, the smile on Ryosuke's face gradually froze. It was Itoshi Rin, Ariuji Yubei, and Tokimitsu Aoshi. What? Ryosuke widened his eyes in surprise. Seeing the arrival of Rin and the others, he already knew what had happened. Yoichi's team had lost, and Meguro had been selected by Rin. Meguro, what happened? Ryosuke quickly walked over to Meguro's side, inquiring about his situation. He cared a lot about the fact that his teammate had been eliminated. Kira was not surprised by this outcome. After all, Rin was already a powerhouse within the Blue Lock, and both Jiyubei and Aoshi possessed physical talents that were difficult for ordinary people to reach. The two teams had a vast difference in overall strength, and in the original work, Yoichi's team had lost to Rin twice. However, Kira wasn't worried that they would be eliminated. The stronger the opponent, the more they could further evolve. At this moment, Rin ignored everyone around and walked in front of Kira. Don't waste any more time. Let me kill you, you insignificant ant. Veins bulged on Rin's forehead, and when he looked at Kira, he felt a strong sense of displeasure. Moreover, in this round of selection, Kira once again stood ahead of him, completing the race faster than him. I would love to, but I suggest you take a look at the notice next to you, Kira said, pointing his finger toward the wall. Clearly written on it was the rule that the time interval between matches for each team must be less than 24 hours. It's just extending your time until death. Be happy that you can cling on for one more day. After uttering those harsh words, Rin left and went to the designated room for rest. On the side, Ikki remained silent, feeling somewhat nervous. He was well aware of Rin's terrifying strength. The intense aura emanating from Rin was suffocating, and the killing intent he exuded was not fake. Only monsters like Kira could remain calm in the presence of Rin. Ikki couldn't help but become curious. Who was stronger between Kira and Rin? That's how it happened. Meguro just explained the match to Ryosuke, who couldn't help but swallow nervously. Yoichi, Meguro, and Hyoma as a combination were definitely not weak, yet they were crushed by a significant margin. Just how strong was Rin? Although it's a bit frustrating, there's nothing we can do now. At that moment, Meguro turned his head and looked at Kira with hopeful eyes. But now, I'm a member of another team. We'll be opponents in the next match, right? I'll give it my all. Then, do your best. Kira replied with a smile. But in the end, the winner will definitely be us. Blue Lock, Control Room. Ego pushed his glasses up and focused his gaze on the 5 individuals in front of him. These 5 individuals had different skin tones and came from different countries, but they were all top players in the world. Ego had spent a large sum of money to invite them to the Blue Lock, intending to let them compete with the members of the Blue Lock and make the members understand the gap in their abilities. The strength of these 5 top players was extraordinary, and compared to the members of the Blue Lock, it was like a downgrade. Each of you will receive 100 million, and for every goal scored, you will receive a bonus of 1 million, just as we agreed. Ego said. To be honest, this is truly a treat, like a pie falling from the sky. A bearded Western man said, wearing an indifferent expression on his face, but he indeed had the capital to say so. Adam Blake, representing England, known as the Goal Junkie, possessed incredible physical qualities. Dealing with these 17 or 18-year-old kids was a piece of cake for him. To play against a group of kids, but if there's to make money, I don't mind. Beside him stood a muscular black man with dreadlocks, known as Dada Silva, nicknamed the Heavy Tank. You can't say that. A man who appeared to be like a child spoke, but in reality, he was a rising star in the international football scene, Pablo Cavazos. I envy your country. You have so much money to waste on a project that's bound to fail. A somewhat frivolous-looking man held his head and spoke with an indifferent expression. His name was Leonardo Luna, also a world-renowned player. However, there's one thing I must make clear to you. Just then, Ego pushed his glasses and his expression became very serious. If you lose a match, you won't receive a single penny. Oh? Mr. Ego, do you think there's a possibility of us losing? Among the 5 individuals, there was a young black man with a crew cut. Though he was the youngest, his eyes emitted a lion-like gaze, and his manner of speaking was very polite. Julien Loki, a rising star who recently made a name for himself in the French League, was the same age as the other members of the Blue Lock but possessed incredibly terrifying strength. It can be said that his untapped potential surpasses the other 4. Initially, I also believed it was impossible. Even if you played 10,000 matches, I would still be defeated by a significant margin. However, after noticing certain things, my perspective has changed. Even if it's a minuscule possibility, there are individuals in the Blue Lock whom even you should not underestimate. Ego spoke slowly. It's impossible for such a person to exist. The other 4 spoke in unison, while Julian's eyes narrowed slightly. Mr. Ego, may I ask who that person is? You will find out in due time. A meaningful smile appeared on Ego's face. After just one confrontation, you will know who I'm talking about. If my estimation is correct, you'll be stepping onto the field sooner than expected. On the other side, Kira and the others followed the instructions from the broadcast and entered their respective rooms. The rooms in the 4-person area were much better than the others. They were more spacious and had 4 separate beds. The meals in the cafeteria were also more abundant. Their personal belongings had already been transported to these rooms. Kira, do you play games? Nagi took out his phone and asked. No, I don't play mobile games. I'm going to the training session later. After saying that, Kira left the room and headed to the gym in their area. Ryosuke had long been accustomed to Kira's training fanaticism and quickly followed suit by heading to the gym. Ikki, eager to catch up with Kira, trailed behind them, determined to give his all. On the other hand, Nagi was originally a particularly lazy person who didn't participate much in training. He relied on his incredible talent during matches. However, since Kira was going to train, he decided to make a slight change and experience the joy of football. He ultimately put down his phone and joined them in the gym. Once in the gym, Kira wasted no time. After a warm-up, he immediately began his training, with Ryosuke following closely behind. Ikki, on the other hand, started with some lower-intensity exercises on the side, carefully observing Kira. He wanted to see how he organized his training routine, intending to mimic it himself. A few hours later, Ikki completely broke down. He came to a profound realization: Kira wasn't human at all. The intensity of the exercises Kira had assigned to himself was even more insane than the training program Ego had given them earlier. It was something that ordinary people simply couldn't endure. After struggling to hold on for a while, Ikki ended up exhausted and vomiting. Kira, aren't you supposed to compete with us today? Aren't you tired? Holding the bucket for vomiting, Ikki sat on the ground, completely drained. Although Ikki's physical fitness had improved considerably after 10 days of intensive training, he couldn't compare to the likes of Kira, who was a monster. It's fine. After all, I only need to score 5 goals, and the field is relatively small, so it doesn't require much stamina. Kira said as he ran on the treadmill at a high speed, barely even breathing, addressing Ikki. Compared to the training program developed by Rico, this level of intensity wasn't considered very difficult. Monster! Ikki couldn't help but exclaim again. During the match, he hadn't even participated much in the attack. He was already exhausted from just defending Kira. For Kira, on the other hand, that match had posed no pressure whatsoever. It's truly terrifying. Since the first day we arrived at the Blue Lock, Kira has been maintaining training of terrifying intensity every day. We pale in comparison. Ryosuke was also reaching his physical limit and had to stop and rest for a moment. Nagi sat nearby, wiping the sweat off his forehead with a towel. Training is really bothersome, hey. Nagi sighed and immediately took out his phone, planning to sneak in a bit of play during the brief rest. However, at that moment, Kira suddenly appeared in front of Nagi and snatched his phone away. Hey, I wasn't ready yet. Training isn't over, so no slacking off. Kira said with a smile, but there was a hint of indisputability in his tone. Unconsciously, he had taken on a bit of Rico's coaching mannerisms. Can't we take it a bit easier? How about running 3 kilometers as a break? Running 3 kilometers as a break. Ikki's hand, holding the bucket, trembled slightly. He had initially thought of learning Kira's training methods, but in the end, he realized that he couldn't keep up at all. The intensity of this training was enough to drive a person to death. However, before he could hesitate, Kira had already grabbed him and threw him onto the treadmill. Come on, Ikki. Treat the slow jog of 3 kilometers as your rest. You can eat a little more tonight. And Nagi, I saw your hand. No playing with your phone until training is done. Your physical fitness is too poor, so you need a significant improvement in this area. Absolutely no slacking off. Hey, Ikki, don't vomit on the treadmill. We might have to pay for it. Chapter 68, Neil. After finishing their training, it was already evening. Kira led his teammates for a tactical. Based on the expected formation of the opposing team, each person would be matched up against a different opponent. Ikki was matched up against Meguru, who had a similar physique. His excellent defensive abilities should be able to create some trouble for Meguru. Ryosuke was matched up against Aoshi, whose greatest strength lay in his monstrous physical abilities. Ryosuke, with his strong build, was the best fit to guard against him. Nagi's natural talent would be able to rival Gyubei. And finally, the opponent's strongest player, Rin, was left to Kira to handle. Although there were assigned matchups, the actual situation could change during the course of the game. At this moment, Kira opened the system interface. Host, Kira Ryosuke. Competitiveness points, 130. Today's game only awarded Kira 80 points, but it was still higher than he had anticipated. After all, the number of players and the scale of the game were smaller than a normal match, and the time spent was considerably shorter. It was reasonable that the reward in points was also less. However, tomorrow's opponent had overall strength that could be considered the strongest, even surpassing the big three of the V team from before. Aoshi and Gyubei possessed physical abilities, and Rin's overall strength was undeniably the top among the Blue Lock. Not only did he have outstanding shooting skills, but he also possessed excellent spatial awareness like Yoichi and Ikki, being able to perceive the movements of the entire field. He could even guide others to act according to his will, like a puppeteer on the field. But Kira didn't believe that he would lose. We're going to face someone like Rin tomorrow. Are you nervous? Kira cast his gaze upon the people in front of him, waiting for their response. If you ask whether we're nervous, well, maybe a little. But precisely because there's someone like Rin, we need to win. Ryosuke answered firmly. I've already experienced that feeling of unwillingness once, and I don't want to go through it again. Nagi, although still wearing a calm expression, had a serious look in his eyes as well. Me too. I don't want to lose any more, and his arrogant attitude is getting on my nerves. Ikki nodded in agreement. All right then, let's go all out tomorrow and take care of them. A smile appeared on Kira's face. Meanwhile, Meguru and Rin were training. Hey, Rin, do you have a monster in your heart? Meguru, drenched in sweat, sat on the grass, panting, and turned his head to look at Rin. What nonsense are you talking about? What kind of half-baked question is that? Rin turned his head and glanced at Meguru with disdain. It's not something that actually exists, just a fantasy of football that aligns with your own desires. I think impressive individuals should have it. Who knows? It's because you're controlled by such childish things that you appear weak and boring on the field. You can spend your whole life playing against monsters, while I'll become the world's number one. Rin had no intention of wasting time on idle talk with Meguru and turned to leave. However, at that moment, Meguru spoke again. But there's one person who's an exception. Kira. The monster in my heart feels fear towards Kira, or rather, Kira is a more terrifying existence than a monster. We must never underestimate him. Ridiculous statement. He's just a stepping stone for me to climb higher, and I'll mercilessly crush him along the way. Rin turned and spoke, without pausing for a moment, then left the training field. The next day, Kira and his team arrived early at the lobby on this floor. Meanwhile, Rin and his team had been waiting for a long time. Are you in a hurry to die? Rin narrowed his eyes, locking his gaze on Kira, with a hint of disdain in his eyes. I can return that line to you word for word. Kira replied with a relaxed expression, looking around. Besides them, another team had also arrived, but Kira didn't recognize them. However, the faces of those 4 people were filled with expressions of fear. Each of them had heard of Rin's name and witnessed his formidable strength during the assembly. Some of them had even faced Rin in the first selection round. They all shared a consensus in their minds, challenging Rin was a dead end. Fortunately, the rules of this round required the consent of both teams for the match to take place. This gave them a glimmer of hope, as they would absolutely refuse if Rin's team actively challenged them. This is definitely a dead end. They will definitely be demoted straight back to the 3rd district. In their eyes, it was an absolute impossibility to win. Meanwhile, Rin completely ignored the other team and looked at Kira with an extremely contemptuous gaze. All right, I'll send you on your way. I made it clear to you. If I win, I won't choose you. Just go back to the previous stage and start over, so that others can see the pitiful defeat of the mighty Rin. Kira replied with a smile. You're quite trendy, but I'll bring the match to a stylish end. Jiyubei used his hand to smooth his hair, wearing an indifferent expression on his face. Can we really win? I'm so nervous, so excited. Though Aoji appeared very negative, in reality, he couldn't wait to start the match. Kira and also Ryosuke, this time we're going to fight each other. I'll give it my all. Meguru smiled and said to Kira. Such a hassle. Let's get it over. Nagi said slowly. We will definitely be the winners. Ikki said the same. Bring it on. Ryosuke stepped forward, exchanged punches with Meguru, a look of impatience on his face. His heart was filled with nervousness, but at the same time, he eagerly anticipated the match. Soon, both teams of 8 players arrived at the field. After verifying their fingerprints, the match officially commenced. Kira's team, the white team, and Rin's team, the red team. The match began, with the red team launching the first attack. Meguru swiftly dribbled the ball past midfield, while Ikki, responsible for defending against him, immediately closed in, not intending to give the opponent any chance to break through. What a troublesome guy with those thick bangs. I didn't expect to encounter you here. Meguru said with a smile, flicking the ball to the side, passing it to Rin's feet. What a boring bunch you are. Just a group of people thrown together. Rin, standing at the center line, skillfully stopped the ball, then lifted his head, gazing down at the people before him, including his teammates. Your comrade was my stepping stone in the previous round, wasn't he? There's not much difference between you. I really hope you all disappear from my sight. The field is a battlefield, and I'll personally kill all of you. Rin suddenly raised his foot and took a shot from the midfield. The incredibly fast ball flew right through the gap between Ikki and Ryosuke, heading straight for the goal. What a tricky curve! Ikki couldn't help but exclaim. This shot not only possessed an ultra-fast speed, leaving him with no time to react, but it also curved directly towards the corner of the goal, giving them no chance to make a defensive move. And that ball was heading straight for the top right corner of the goal. Just accept your defeat honestly. Rin said calmly. But his words suddenly stopped, and his expression became serious. Rin's spatial perception, which encompassed the entire field, allowed him to detect an unusual presence within the field. And just when almost everyone thought this shot was a sure goal, a swift figure suddenly appeared in front of the goal. Kira Ryosuke. Thunderclap flash. Kira concentrated his explosive power in his legs, then leaped high and used his head to forcefully disrupt this otherwise certain shot. A very stylish shot, but the clearance this time is even more stylish. The jumping ability and timing control are at a remarkably stylish level. Gyubei praised Kira's defense. There was a twitch at the corner of Rin's mouth. He had no idea why Kira appeared in that location. Because in the instant of the shot, he had captured the positions of everyone, and Kira's original position should have been far away from the goal, making it impossible for him to interfere with this shot. But after the shot, Rin noticed that Kira was sprinting towards their own goal at a super speed. Moreover, his route was very direct, as if he had seen through the trajectory of this shot. Indeed, it is precisely because of Kira's ability Thunder Swarm that he could better judge the trajectory of Rin's shot and disrupt it at the last moment. This annoying guy! Rin couldn't help but curse. At this moment, after the ball was headed away by Kira, it fell at Nagi's feet, and in the instant he touched the ball, he passed it out. Kira, who had just been in front of their own goal, sprinted forward and successfully received his teammate's pass. Kira's speed was incredibly fast as he closed in on Rin. Rin immediately retreated, tightening their defensive line, while carefully observing Kira's movements and the positions of the other players on the field. He guided Kira along the route he anticipated, deep into their own half. This would narrow the opponent's attacking options, while the timing of Gyubei's retreat and Aoji's double team from different directions would make it easy for Rin to read the passing lanes and easily make interceptions. This was Rin's most terrifying aspect, manipulating the entire flow of the game invisibly. Are you predicting my actions? Kira said to Rin. Your ability to perceive the entire field is indeed remarkable, a power I have never possessed. Good to know. This is the difference between me and you ants. I can see the scenery that you ordinary beings can't even glimpse. However, Kira narrowed his eyes slightly and a smile appeared on his face. Your ability has no meaning to me. What are you talking about? Even if you can see my attacking trajectory, what can you do about it? While Kira was finishing his sentence, he suddenly accelerated once again. Thunderclap flash. Kira's sudden burst of speed surprised Rin, as it seemed even faster than before. Rin's body instinctively reacted, shifting his weight backward to try and keep up with the opponent's speed as much as possible. But in that instant, Rin heard a loud warning from Meguru. Don't be fooled. It's a feint. What? Before Rin could react, Kira suddenly decelerated and stood in front of Rin as if frozen in place. To be able to come to a sudden stop at such high speed and still maintain complete control over the ball, it was evident that Kira possessed terrifying physical qualities, balance, and ball control skills. Due to Kira's sudden change in rhythm, Rin's body involuntarily leaned forward again, but his balance was completely disrupted. His ankles struggled to stabilize his stance, and he stumbled, falling to the ground. Rin widened his eyes in disbelief. This was the first time he had been cleanly passed by a player in a one-on-one situation. On the defensive end, he felt completely toyed with. Kneel down. It seems like this is the first time you understand the meaning of respect. In the moment he fell, Kira's voice echoed in Rin's ears. And with a gust of wind sweeping by, Kira had already accelerated once again, heading straight for the goal. Even though Aoji and Gyubei were desperately trying to chase him, they couldn't catch up to Kira's speed at all. He lifted his foot. He took the shot. The goalkeeper of the red team, the blue lock man, made a desperate attempt to save it but couldn't stop Kira's shot. 1-0. Chapter 69, The Puppeteer. Great! After Kira scored, his teammates immediately surrounded him to celebrate. Kira had successfully taken on Rin one-on-one. Defeating a monster of Rin's caliber in a one-on-one challenge significantly boosted the team's morale. Kira is actually this strong. Anri in the control room couldn't help but praise. Kira's strength surpassed her expectations. His formidable speed and jumping ability thwarted Rin's almost certain goal, and he emerged victorious in the 1v1 offensive phase against Rin. Initially, Anri believed that Kira was strong but perhaps slightly weaker than Rin, considering the Rin's exceptional talent as the younger brother of the world-class genius Itoshi Sae. In the previous phase, Rin effortlessly defeated the formidable Yoichi team. Without a direct comparison before, now, after their face-to-face confrontation, Anri rejected her previous viewpoint. She realized that she had greatly underestimated Kira. Moreover, Anri felt that Kira seemed to have become even stronger than before. That's why I said this guy is the most terrifying individual in Blue Lock. And it's not just his own strength, Anri. I don't know if you've noticed, but both opponents and teammates, after playing with Kira, their abilities have skyrocketed. Ego spoke slowly while leaning forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. The real show is probably just beginning. Rin should start taking it seriously now. Let's see how much pressure Kira can put on him. I'm sure his self-esteem will take a huge blow, and the more that happens, the more his true strength will burst forth. That was a stylish dribble and goal. I didn't expect Rin to be beaten like that. Jiyubei praised. Oh no, the opponent scored. What do we do? Aoshi said anxiously. Meguru, on the other hand, walked over to Rin's side and reached out his hand, wanting to help him up. However, Rin slapped his hand away. Get lost. Rin stood up on his own, his voice filled with anger. It's time to get serious. Meguru didn't feel angry at Rin's reaction. Instead, an excited smile appeared on his face. Because the monster in his heart told him that Rin was now completely serious. What an infuriating guy. Rin ruffled his hair. Although his facial expression remained unchanged, there seemed to be flames burning in his eyes. Kira's performance of getting past him had ignited Rin's anger. He had been shaken to the ground by someone else. Now, he was completely enraged and determined to make Kira pay the price. I'm going all out now. Keep up with me. Rin glanced at his teammates from the corner of his eye, his tone resembling an unchallengeable command. Got it. Meguru's face broke into a smile. Soon, the red team launched another attack. Rin quickly dribbled the ball past the halfway line and came directly in front of Kira. At this moment, there was no trace of disdain in his eyes towards Kira. Instead, it had transformed into a different emotion. A hatred that seemed to vow to tear the opponent to pieces. For now, let's take back what I said earlier. I admit that you're not an ant, but a pest that must be eradicated. Rin said in a cold tone to Kira. It seems like you still haven't learned your lesson. Kira countered with a smile. Instead of continuing to dribble, Rin passed the ball to Aoshi, who was advancing on the side. However, Ryosuke was there too. I can intercept it. I should be able to get there first. Ryosuke quickly ran towards the landing spot of the ball. But at the moment the ball touched the ground, it suddenly bounced towards the position of Aoshi. In the instant Rin kicked the ball, he used his footwork to apply spin to the ball, causing it to bounce towards Aoshi's position after landing. This not only allowed Aoshi to gain possession of the ball but also drew Ryosuke out of the defensive area. Aoshi firmly controlled the ball beneath him, immediately turned around, and leaned his back against Ryosuke, using his sturdy body to keep him at bay. What on earth is this guy made of? Ryosuke was somewhat surprised at the moment of physical contact. His own physique was already very strong, not to mention the rigorous training he had undergone. But at this moment, he couldn't gain any advantage against Aoshi. Aoshi didn't stick to the ball but immediately turned around and passed it back to Rin, who was rapidly advancing into the opponent's territory. However, Rin still didn't hold onto the ball for long. As soon as he received it, he passed it out with an exaggerated arc. His target was Jiyubei, who was making a run. Rin is willingly sharing the ball possession like this. At this moment, Iki using his exceptional spatial awareness to analyze the opponent's situation. He sensed that Rin was planning something, but Iki hadn't yet realized what it was. What does he want to do? On the other side, Jiyubei, who had already penetrated deep into the opponent's territory, looked up. The height of this pass was extremely high, impossible for an average person to receive. But Jiyubei could receive it. He possessed incredible jumping ability, giving him an aerial dominance that others couldn't reach. It's like a high pass that tests my abilities, but I accept the challenge. There's only one option. Jiyubei leaped high, just like a humanoid rocket, and in midair, he controlled the ball with his chest. But as soon as he landed, a figure appeared in front of him. Nagi's hero. He knew that he couldn't surpass Jiyubei in terms of jumping ability, so he didn't choose to contest for the pass. Instead, he immediately positioned himself in a defensive position. While Jiyubei was making a breakthrough, he observed his surroundings. At his side, a swift figure had already dashed out. Idoji Rin. How cunning, Rin. If you appear at this moment, I can only pass the ball to you. Jiyubei had only one choice, to directly pass the ball to Rin. But in the instant Rin received the ball, Ikki had already appeared in front of him. So that's it. All the passes were just for your own attack. That's your plan. Ikki, who also possessed the ability to perceive the entire field, discerned Rin's strategy and blocked the opponent's attacking route. In that moment, Ikki felt that the gap between himself and Rin had been infinitely narrowed. He believed he could successfully organize Rin's next attack. However, Ikki suddenly realized that his presence didn't elicit any surprised expression from Rin. It was as if the opponent knew he would appear there. Indeed, you also have such eyes. But can I not see the scenery in your eyes? Rin spoke with an incredibly arrogant tone, as if Ikki was a completely insignificant existence. And at that moment, Rin suddenly lifted his foot, as if he was preparing to take a shot. Ikki could only try to interfere. Ikki's center of gravity shifted, but Rin's movement changed. Everything was just a feint for a shot. In the instant Ikki's balance was disrupted, Rin successfully broke through. Using his spatial awareness, Rin observed the trajectory of everyone's movements. He deduced from Ikki's running route that the opponent also possessed the ability to perceive the entire field and would appear in that spot. But Rin wasn't worried because he wanted to create a one-on-one situation with Ikki. The opponent couldn't surpass him in terms of physicality or technical ability. Easily bypassing Ikki, Rin continued his breakthrough. And at that moment, a figure directly appeared at his side. Kira. At this very moment, Kira had already come to press him. However, all of this was within Rin's calculations. You're fast, but it's only useful the first time. Now I know your speed. I know your limit. Rin shouted, and in the first half-second before Kira reached him, he had already passed the ball. Whether it was Ikki or Kira, Rin used his positioning and breakthrough to lure them into chasing him. In doing so, Meguru would be left unmarked. You're 2 steps too slow. Is everyone following Idoji Rin's plan? Anri was dumbfounded. It was only from the perspective of God's eyes that she could truly understand what Rin had done. Whether it was teammates or opponents, everyone was acting according to his plan. Testing the limits of each individual, guiding others into battle, this was Rin's strategy. Everyone is just a puppet manipulated by Rin. Even Kira's movements are within his calculations. This is the puppeteer of football. Anri sighed. This was something that couldn't be achieved solely through spatial awareness. Rin possessed a terrifying football intelligence. Even though Kira's individual skills are exceptional, he's still being led around by Rin. Rather than manipulating puppets, it's more like putting chains on others and treating them like livestock, forcing them to move. Meanwhile, Ego pushed his glasses up. However, don't forget one thing. These chains can only hold livestock. The monster can easily break free. You're 2 steps too slow. Rin shouted loudly. Watch closely. This is the absolute gap in strength between the two of us. So noisy. In front of him, Kira had a calm expression on his face. It was only then that Rin noticed that there was no trace of panic on the opponent's face. Even though his tactical trap successfully manipulated Kira, he was behaving so calmly. Kira understood Rin's tactics. The opponent would lure him into defending, leaving Meguru completely unmarked. If he defended, it would result in a clear opportunity for Meguru to score. If he didn't defend, Rin could easily bypass Ikki and take a shot. It was an almost impossible choice, one that would lead to his team conceding a goal no matter how he chose. But for Kira, he had a third option. Just 2 steps, I just need to catch up. At this moment, Kira adjusted his breathing abruptly and once again entered a state of total concentration breathing. His total concentration breathing had already reached level 3, allowing him to use it more freely and effortlessly than before. Although he couldn't maintain it for the entire match yet, he could sustain it for at least half the time. And now, it was the perfect moment to unleash his full power. Only with level 3 Thunderclap Flash in total concentration breathing could he unleash his true strength. Even in less than a fraction of a second, Rin could clearly feel the change in Kira's aura. Kira gathered his power in his legs. His blood surged like turbulent waves, continuously flushing through his veins, and his muscles became indestructible rocks. Kira aimed to catch up with Meguru from behind at the fastest speed. In the next breath, Kira had already dashed forward. At this moment, Meguru had just received a pass from Rin. However, as he was preparing to take a shot, a terrifying sensation spread from behind him, piercing into his bones like icy coldness. "He's coming! He's coming!" Meguru could hear the roar of the monster in his heart. It was a voice trembling with fear. Meguru could feel every cell in his body sending out warnings. Instinctively, he turned his head to look at the source of this terrifying premonition. There was only one person who could make the monster in his heart feel fear. Kira. This can't be true. Meguru's voice also trembled. In that instant, his body seemed unsure of how to move. Although Kira had been standing beside Rin just a moment ago, he had almost instantly appeared behind him. At this moment, in Meguru's eyes, Kira was like a demon awakened from hell, covered in ever-burning flames, charging towards him. Even though Meguru hesitated for less than half a second, it was already too late for him to attempt a shot in the next moment. Successful interception. Chapter 70, 2 Steps. Just catch up. Kira, utilizing his terrifying speed, forcefully snatched the ball from Meguru's feet. There was almost total quiet throughout. That's some stylish defense. Jiyubei wiped the sweat off his forehead and looked at Kira, his gaze filled with admiration. What? Are you kidding me? Even Ikki, as a teammate, couldn't help but exclaim in disbelief. He had already witnessed Kira's impressive defensive abilities, but what he just displayed was far more than before. It was easy to imagine that neither their former Y team nor the team he formed with Ryo and Shuai yesterday stood any chance of defeating him. One could even say that yesterday's match might not have been enough to make Kira take it seriously. Now he truly understood the terrifying strength of Kira. Meanwhile, Kira's speed had left Rin standing still as if he had crashed. He had carefully planned everything, manipulating everyone on the field like puppets, including Kira. Everyone was acting according to his script. But in the end, Kira had disrupted everything. Originally, Rin had set up an almost unsolvable multiple-choice question for Kira. No matter how he chose, it was inevitable that the red team would score. However, Kira, with his terrifying individual abilities, forcefully found a third option. While Rin passed the ball to Meguru, Kira used his speed to defend, effectively thwarting this offensive opportunity. What kind of monster is this guy? Even the usually arrogant Rin felt a sense of oppression emanating from Kira at this moment. This feeling was reminiscent of the only one-on-one duel he had with Sae in the past. Rin wavered for a moment. But after the wavering, Rin's expression became even more serious. Through gritted teeth, he muttered to himself. If I can't take down this guy, let alone defeat Sae, no matter what, I have to win. I must win. He immediately retreated and returned to his own half of the field. Meanwhile, Kira and his teammates launched an attack simultaneously. Kira dribbled the ball swiftly, heading straight for the red team's goal. Rin stared intently at Kira, not intending to give him any space to break through. In the previous play, Kira had dribbled past Rin. This time, he wouldn't allow a repeat of that mistake. Not only that, Aoji and Jiyubei providing faster support in defending against Kira's attack. They had already witnessed Kira's terrifying strength and couldn't afford to give him another opportunity to break through. I won't let you score again. Rin's focus sharpened as he stared fixedly at Kira. In a sense, he had already considered Kira as his number 2 enemy. Rin himself was a talented football prodigy, and the only person who had ever defeated him was his brother, Sae. Apart from that, Rin had never lost a match. On the field, he was a complete force to be reckoned with for everyone else. However, now, even though they were only trailing by 1 goal, Rin felt as if he was standing on the edge of a cliff. The sense of oppression that Kira brought him was no less than what Sae had once made him feel. But Kira's expression still appeared calm and composed. Oh, is that a difficult task? While speaking, Kira suddenly accelerated once again, approaching Rin's side. Rin's brain rapidly calculated, and at the same time, he intentionally tilted his body slightly to the side, creating what seemed like an opening. Kira continued his acceleration, like an arrow released from a bow, shooting past Rin's side. And all of this was the result of Rin's deliberate plan. He intentionally tilted his body to guide Kira to launch an attack in this direction. Because Rin had already used his eyes to perceive that Jiyubei and Aoji had retreated to his rear, with Megara nearby. If Kira chooses to break through that route, they can surround him with 3 people and completely block his path. All of this is a trap set by Rin. But for Kira, this is also an opportunity. He breaks through from Rin's side, and in the next second, Aoshi, who has been lying in wait, charges out. No. I can't let you pass. Aoshi looks somewhat timid as he speaks. But it's all just a facade. Aoshi possesses a terrifying physical strength, and in the original work, he was even able to temporarily suppress Baro Shuai, who had equally impressive physical abilities. At the moment Kira breaks through from his side, Rin also turns around and follows closely behind him. In Rin's calculations, Aoji stands in front of Kira, and his strong physical attributes should make it uncomfortable for Kira to surpass him easily. As long as Aoji can use his physical advantage to create suitable body contact, not only can he stop Kira's attack, but he might also disrupt his balance. Even if Kira chooses to use a feint to bypass him, as long as Aoji obstructs him for half a second, Rin can seize the opportunity and make the interception. It can be said that the double team of Rin and Aoji is like the jaws of a beast, aiming to devour Kira completely. I see. When Kira sees Aoshi, he already guesses the trap set by Rin. If it were any other player, this attack would likely end in failure. But for Kira, this tactic doesn't work. A trap set to catch wild dogs cannot bind a lion. Kira doesn't decelerate. Instead, he charges towards Aoji's side. That's too forced. Ikki shouted anxiously. When Aoji was in physical confrontation with Ryosuke just now, he clearly saw the terrifying physical abilities of Aoshi, which put Ryosuke, who also had a strong physique, at a disadvantage. Kira should also be aware of this, yet he still chose to confront head-on. If he used a feint, it would give Rin time to double-team from behind, putting him in a difficult situation and making it difficult to pass the ball to others in that position. Could it be that Kira has confidence in overpowering Aoshi? Ikki was somewhat puzzled, but he had witnessed a terror of Kira. He had been defeated twice by Kira's hands, so he knew that Kira was someone capable of creating miracles. He then sprinted, utilizing his keen observation skills to speculate on the future development, and ran towards a certain direction. This guy wants to forcefully break through directly. Rin was somewhat surprised, but for him, it wasn't a bad thing. For Kira to attempt a direct breakthrough against Aoji was the worst choice. With Aoji's physical abilities, he could easily disrupt Kira's attacking rhythm. Once the interception was made, the red team could quickly transition to offense and pose a threat to the white team's goal again. Aoji also lowered his center of gravity and prepared for physical contact. In the next second, Kira had already made an action, and his body collided with Aoji's side. On the field, reasonable body contact was allowed, and fierce physical contact was often considered a means of both offense and defense. At the moment of contact, surprise appeared on Aoji's face. He felt that Kira was not a person, but a massive boulder that had rolled off him, causing intense pain in Aoji's shoulder. With just one collision, Kira's speed and rhythm were unaffected, while Aoji lost his balance and was pushed away a considerable distance. How is this possible? Rin, who was chasing after them, was dumbfounded. Although he had a disdainful attitude towards opponents and teammates alike, he was well aware that Aoji's physical strength far exceeded that of the surrounding others. And now, Aoji was completely overwhelmed by Kira in terms of physical strength. He had already demonstrated super speed and delicate technique earlier, and now he possessed this terrifying physical ability as well. Aoji was pushed away by Kira, who continued to charge towards the goal. You won't get past me. And after Aoshi, Jiyubei has also emerged. With his slender limbs and strong motor skills, he possesses impressive defensive abilities. Unlike Aoshi, who relies on body contact, Jiyubei can use his limbs to interfere. His long legs make it easy for him to make interceptions, and his hands give him an advantage when marking opponents. But in the instant that Jiyubei charged forward, he heard Rin shouting excitedly. You fool! It's a trap! Rin understood the consequences of Kira's consecutive breakthroughs. Their defensive formation had been completely torn apart. Kira's goal was the same as Rin's in the previous play, to divert the attention of the defenders towards himself. Jiyubei didn't understand the meaning behind Rin's words. But when he snapped out of it, he realized that the ball under Kira's feet had vanished. Shortly after dribbling past Aoshi, Kira had already passed the ball. The recipient of the pass was Ikki. Indeed, Kira, you truly are a monster capable of creating miracles. Ikki hadn't expected Kira to overpower Aoshi. But instinctively, he moved. Because more than anyone else, Ikki knew that Kira was someone who could use his immense strength to accomplish the impossible. So, while Kira was charging forward, Ikki made a direct run from the side. And Kira also noticed him. I won't let you pass. Shortly after Ikki received the ball, Meguru immediately rushed to provide defensive cover. Meguru had initially planned to provide support in defending against Kira and never expected Ikki to appear in that position. But in the end, he exerted all his efforts to catch up with Ikki. However, in the eyes of Ikki, who also possessed keen observational skills, Meguru's actions were the gravest mistake. With 3 players occupied by Kira, and Meguru now in front of him, it meant that both Nagi and Ryosuke were completely unmarked. Ikki didn't waste a moment sticking to the ball. He immediately kicked it away. The nearest player was Ryosuke. Great pass. Ryosuke concentrated his power on his left leg and unleashed a powerful shot. Like a tank shell fired, it went directly past the red team's blue lock man and into the goal. 2-0. The white team scored another goal. Well done. Kira walked up and high-fived his teammates. I never expected you to appear in that position and make such a pass. Nagi, who was nearby, looked at Ikki with interest. During the match between Team V and Team Y, he thought Ikki was just an average player with no special talent. Even when Kira selected him for the team, Nagi didn't think he would have much impact. However, Ikki's recent performance did surprise Nagi. It's not my merit. It's because Kira can distract 3 opponents at once. Ikki shifted his gaze to Kira. I didn't originally think Kira could penetrate the opponent's defense in such a direct manner. But my body moved involuntarily, as if subconsciously believing that Kira could do it. Is that so? Nagi nodded thoughtfully. In the past, he didn't understand why people without talent would continue to persist in playing football. However, after facing off against Kira and becoming his teammate, he gradually understood the meaning behind the words Kira had said to him before. Kira, with his immense strength, could bring out the potential in his teammates and take their abilities to new heights. Perhaps it was similar to Itoshi Rin's skill of controlling the entire field, but it had its own unique quality. Nagi became even more curious about Kira and increasingly believed that teaming up with him was the right decision. Meanwhile, the atmosphere on the red team became extremely tense. None of them had ever been pushed to such a situation in any previous match. Chapter 71, Awakening. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I couldn't defend against him. Aoshi blamed himself intensely, while vigorously hitting his own head. It's not your fault, Aoshi. Jiyubei, standing beside him, flicked his bangs. I have to admit, Kira's sense of style surpasses yours. Rin remained silent nearby, but the burning fury within him grew stronger. When Kira scored the first goal, Rin wasn't fully serious yet. But in the recent offensive and defensive exchange, Rin could say that he was in a highly serious state. Yet he still couldn't stop Kira. Not only was his puppetry strategy, which he believed was foolproof, broken by Kira's speed, but even the traps deliberately set on the defensive end were effortlessly overcome by Kira's brute strength. This way he would lose. When he defeats this guy, he would be one step further from defeating Itoshi Sae. He absolutely couldn't lose to someone like Kira. Inside Rin's heart, an unknown emotion was rapidly spreading. However, unlike Rin, on his side, Meguru's face showed a complex expression. It seemed to be a forced smile, but his body was trembling at the same time. On one hand, this was the football he longed for, the opportunity to face Kira head-on on the field, against a true monster. But on the other hand, Kira's display of formidable strength instilled fear in the monster within him. This made Meguru unconsciously become hesitant and unsure of himself on the field. It was precisely because of that fear towards Kira that when he had the chance to take a shot earlier, he hesitated for half a second. He knew that even without that half-second hesitation, his shot would undoubtedly be thwarted by Kira. But it was because of that terrifying feeling that he couldn't shoot without reservation afterwards. In this way, he was even less likely to defeat Kira, and the gap between them would only widen. Even in this match Meguru felt like he was a step slower than everyone else, out of sync with the others on the field. This couldn't go on, absolutely couldn't go on. If it continued like this, the joy of football would cease to exist. Regardless, he had to make the monster in his heart quiet down completely. He had to eliminate the subconscious fear of Kira from his heart. Once, the monster guided Meguru's actions on the field, but now it had become his shackles. Yes, it was because of the monster's presence that I never felt lonely when playing football alone before. Thank you, monster, for always being by my side. But now I can't rely on you anymore. If that's the case, I'll never be able to catch up to Kira's footsteps. Please disappear, disappear. I don't need you anymore, monster. Meguru's expression changed. His gaze became unfathomable, as if it were a black hole ready to engulf everything, and the smile on his face vanished. In his ears, the voice of the monster that guided his actions had completely disappeared. The next steps Meguru would take were already prepared to follow his own heart. To act as he pleased, that was the football Meguru truly desired. Red team's attack. Meguru dribbled the ball directly and charged into the white team's half. However, Iki quickly blocked Meguru with the fastest speed. The attacking route is blocked, and Nagi and Ryosuke can provide defensive support from behind. This guy should be aware of this, so passing is the best option. The most suitable passing target for him is Rin. Iki used his excellent observation skills to assess the situation on the field. He believed that he had completely blocked Meguru's attacking route and that the opponent would choose to pass the ball back. Hey, pass it back! Beside Meguru, Rin also commanded in a loud voice. At this moment, Iki sensed something. He keenly felt that Meguru's aura seemed to have changed, and his expression became quite serious. It was an expression that Meguru had never shown before, completely focusing his spirit on himself. Could it be? Before Iki could react, Meguru had already made a move. He directly passed the ball through Iki's legs and barely brushed past him. He almost lost his balance, but ultimately managed to maintain his center of gravity. What? Iki was dumbfounded. His defensive position was not bad at all, but Meguru managed to pass him. This was simply brute force, and it was very irrational. Meguru should be aware of this, because even if he got past Iki, there were still Ryosuke and Nagi double-teaming him from behind. Is this guy crazy? Damn it! Rin, who was on the side, was furious because Meguru went against his command and chose the most irrational one-on-one confrontation. But Meguru's footsteps didn't pause for a moment. He continued to sprint at full speed towards the opponent. I'll stop him! Ryosuke immediately moved forward to intercept. But Meguru suddenly changed direction, causing a shift in his center of gravity, and in the instant his opponent took a step, he once again successfully dribbled the ball through his legs. He got past both of them consecutively. Let's go side by side. Near Meguru, Gyubei and Meguru were positioned parallel to each other, intending to assist Meguru in passing and dribbling. However, Meguru never glanced at Gyubei throughout the entire time. So annoying. I won't pass the ball. At this moment, Meguru's expression seemed to become somewhat fierce, as he was completely absorbed in his own football. He refused to pass the ball to anyone and attacked on his own instinct. Damn it! Ryosuke immediately stepped back, trying hard to defend, but Meguru had already created distance between them. Nagi moved forward to provide defensive support, but Meguru directly executed a high-speed step over, testing Nagi's balance, and then swiftly used a feint to get past him, successfully dribbling past Nagi. Nagi instinctively reached out his hand to try to stop Meguru, but he couldn't stop him at all. At this moment, although Meguru had been playing in a one-on-one state, he still displayed exceptional offensive abilities. This attack posed a significant threat to the white team. Triple team him. Although Meguru successfully dodged Nagi, the time he spent on the change of direction allowed Iki and Ryosuke, who had previously been out of position, to catch up and provide defensive support. However, even in the face of the triple team, Meguru showed no signs of panic. On the contrary, his focus became even more concentrated. The ball at his feet moved as if it had a life of its own, agilely shifting from side to side, occasionally leaping into the air, creating an illusion of opportunities for interceptions and leading the defenders astray. Hey, cut it out! Pass the ball to me! At this moment, Rin had arrived outside the encirclement and shouted angrily at Meguru. Rin's frustration stemmed not only from Meguru's defiance of his command but also from the fact that everyone's attention was solely on Meguru, leaving him with a strong sense of dissatisfaction. He had once believed that Blue Lock was merely a stepping stone for him, and everyone else was just a stepping stone as well, unable to catch up with his pace. Now, he not only felt that others were gradually catching up to him, but there was also the presence of Kira Ryosuke, who made him feel a sense of crisis. How disgusting! In the middle of the field, Meguru was like a performer in a magnificent waltz, using incredibly fancy moves to control the ball in front of him. These were techniques rarely seen in matches. It was as if he had become the center of the world, preparing for a grand performance. These moves were not just for show. First, he executed a Marseille turn to get past Ryosuke, then suddenly performed a quick stop and back pass, causing Nagi, who was preparing to defend, to make a wrong judgment. He then swiftly used a Kruf turn to bypass Iki as well. These three defenders were not weak, and they were also triple-teaming him. It should have been an easy task to defend against him. However, at this moment, Meguru completely transformed. Not only did his focus become highly concentrated, but his ball control skills seemed to have undergone a qualitative leap. In this instant, Meguru seemed to be the most dazzling presence on the entire field. Although it was a struggle, he successfully broke free from the encirclement and headed straight towards the white team's goal. In front of him, there was only one person left to defeat. Kira Ryosuke. Meguru is being too reckless, Anri frowned and said to Ego, who was beside her. Her mind was filled with confusion because in her impression, Meguru was not the type of player who hogged the ball. Whenever there was a suitable opportunity, he would selflessly pass the ball. But now, Meguru was behaving completely differently. Even though Jiyubei and Rin had created good chances through their positioning, Meguru still chose not to pass the ball, which was completely different from his previous style. However, even so, Anri had to admit one thing: Meguru was displaying unparalleled skills, something that none of the others in Blue Lock had shown before. I feel. Has his strength become stronger? Stronger than I expected. This is a kind of awakening, or what they call flow, Ego reached out and explained. Flow. Anri was puzzled. Devoting oneself to the challenge leads to this state. Flow is the enthusiastic state of the mind that humans reach by combining their most appropriate experiences. Humans can become immersed in something to the point of forgetting the passage of time, enjoying this behavior. The brain is in an excited state, or flow of the mind. In the eyes of others, a miraculous goal is born from various flow. Ego explained with a very serious expression, while Anri just nodded lightly, not actually understanding what Ego was saying. However, Anri also understood that Meguru had reached a level that himself couldn't reach in an instant. To be able to enter the flow state is the first step to becoming a top player. Although Meguru has successfully entered this state, he probably cannot control it freely yet, Ego said slowly. Because of his competitiveness, right? It's his desire to challenge Kira that has brought him to this level. He narrowed his eyes slightly. So, how will Kira respond? Meguru dribbled the ball at the fastest speed and arrived in front of Kira. He didn't hesitate, nor could he hesitate. A momentary pause would allow the three defenders he had previously evaded to catch up. Meguru now had only one choice: to get past Kira in the shortest amount of time. The intense competitiveness burned like a blazing fire within Meguru, consuming all the fuel inside him. Regardless of the consequences, he had to reach his peak in this moment. Meguru absolutely did not want the gap between Kira and himself to widen any further. He lowered his center of gravity to the left, intending to shift Kira's center of gravity as well. But in the next instant, Meguru abruptly tilted his body completely to the right, resembling a human pendulum. Although the movement was not complex, it was executed with impressive speed and rhythm. Often, the simplest dribbling techniques were the most effective. Being able to come this far, you are indeed remarkable, Meguru. But now, as your opponent, I will go all out as well, Kira carefully observed Meguru's every move. With his ability, Rice Spirit, he was well aware of the possible actions Meguru might take. As the last line of defense in the team, Kira would never allow Meguru to score easily. In the instant Meguru changed his center of gravity, Kira followed at the fastest speed. Meguru seemed even faster. As Kira's center of gravity completely adjusted, Meguru brushed past his shoulder and charged forward. In that moment, Meguru's gaze swept past Kira's side and directly focused on the goal. Destined to score. This time, Meguru didn't hesitate for a moment and immediately prepared to shoot. If this were a regular full-sized field, your attack would indeed be very threatening. But this is a scaled-down version of the field, and your playing space will be significantly reduced. Stop right here. Just as Meguru thought he had gotten past Kira, the latter swiftly turned around at an even faster speed and successfully disrupted his shot from behind. Chapter 72, Utter Madness. What? Meguro was dumbfounded, and at the same time, his body lost balance and fell to the ground as his shot was disrupted. Meguro believed that he had successfully evaded Kira, and just as he was about to take the shot, Kira managed to make a crucial steal. This meant that Kira was not deceived by Meguro's feint, and he successfully defended with even greater speed and intensity. Although Meguro's attack was thwarted by Kira this time, the ball also went out of bounds, giving the red team a corner kick opportunity. It's still not enough, too forced. Meguro sat on the ground, sighed helplessly, but a somewhat happy smile reappeared on his face. He lowered his head and looked at his hands. He didn't understand what had just happened to his body. It was as if his body had moved on its own. Meguro himself didn't quite grasp the nature of that feeling, but he did successfully break through to the front of the three defenders and reached Kira. At least for that moment, Meguro was enjoying his football. That was a close call. Beside Meguro, Kira extended his hand. Even though I managed to do it to this extent, I still couldn't get past you, Kira. You are truly strong. Meguro smiled at Kira and shook his hand, using his strength to stand up from the ground. While speaking, Meguro carefully recalled everything that had just happened. It seemed that he had always yearned to catch up to Kira's footsteps, which led to the outburst of that inexplicable power. Although he didn't ultimately succeed, Meguro thoroughly enjoyed the feeling of being immersed in the challenge. It's mainly because of the small field that the defenders can quickly close the gap, and the transition between offense and defense is faster. If it were a regular field, after you broke through the defender, I might not have been able to recover in time to defend. Kira chuckled and patted Meguro's shoulder. In the original story, Meguro also exhibited his true potential around this time. And now, Meguro's displayed power seemed even stronger than before. Although I don't really want to admit it, your dribbling and breakthrough just now were really stylish. Jiyubei praised. Just now. It's a shame. If it weren't for Kira, Meguro, you would have scored. Aoji added. Just now, Meguro displayed extraordinary dribbling skills that were beyond their reach. He came very close to succeeding. Kira Ryosuke successfully stopped the shot at the last moment, further proving his strength. However, Meguro also created a corner kick opportunity. The match continued. For the corner kick, it should definitely be me who stylishly completes it, said Jiyubei as he walked to the corner kick spot. But at that moment, a cold voice sounded beside Jiyubei. Get out of the way. Jiyubei turned his head and saw Rin standing behind him. He keenly noticed that something had changed in Rin, who seemed to have become a very unfamiliar presence. At the same time, a terrifying murderous intent emanated from Rin, causing a hint of fear to rise in Jiyubei's heart. It was as if a horrifying monster stood before him. Sweat dripped from Jiyubei's forehead, not due to exhaustion, but because of the terrifying pressure exuded by Rin. He had no choice but to give up the corner kick position and move towards the opponent's goal. His jumping ability and physical advantage made it easier for him to create opportunities in corner kick tactics. However, all of this was based on Rin's corner kick choice, and for him, there was no second option. At this moment, Rin's gaze was firmly fixed on the goal, and his eyes were filled not only with hatred but also with a hint of madness. He took 2 steps back, then accelerated suddenly, lifted his leg, and concentrated his power in the ball at his feet. The ball shot out like an incredibly accurate guided missile, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. Its target was very clear: the white team's goal. A corner kick indeed had the potential to score, but it was extremely difficult. The angle between the corner spot and the goal was almost 0 degrees, making it a very tricky angle to shoot from. So, generally, players don't consider scoring as their objective when taking a corner kick. But for Rin, there was no other choice. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Shoot. Shoot, 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 shoot. Kill everyone, whoever stands in front of me must be killed. No one can stop my progress. I will definitely seek revenge against Itoji Sae. And these people are just stepping stones on my path to revenge. Kill them all, kill them all, kill them all. Hey, shooting directly from here. Ryosuke didn't expect Rin to make such a crazy move. No, this shot is very threatening. Ikki clearly understood the terror of this shot. Even though it was from a 0-degree angle, and from a weak side position, the arc of Rin's shot was still perfect. If not intercepted, it would go into the blind spot of the goal at a very tricky angle. Not only that, but the power of this shot was terrifying, and its speed was extremely fast. Even though the white team was temporarily leading, Iki absolutely couldn't let the opponent reach their goal. He desperately chased after it, trying to intercept the ball in its path, but it seemed as if the ball saw through Iki's limits. Its trajectory passed just beyond his reach. Rin saw through Iki's limits at the moment. Oh no! But just as the ball was about to shoot into the net, a familiar figure appeared once again. Kira Ryosuke. Although he didn't possess the spatial perception abilities of Iki and Rin, but Thunder Swarm could still anticipate the trajectory of the ball. He leaped high and used his head to block this extremely dangerous shot, foiling the corner kick attempt. But the threat was not over. The ball bounced far out and landed right in front of Gyubei. It's my chance. Just as Gyubei was preparing to dribble, a phantom-like figure suddenly swept past him, directly stealing the ball from under his feet. When he saw the person behind, an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. The red team. Idoji Rin. Rin accurately predicted that his shot would be blocked by Kira, so he anticipated that the ball would likely land here. He quickly rushed over, showing no mercy as he snatched the ball from Gyubei's feet. Even though the ball was stolen from Gyubei, he remained silent. Stealing a teammate's ball? Has he completely lost it? Nagi expressed surprise. At this moment, Rin seemed to have completely lost his sanity. Rin's tongue protruded from his mouth, and even drool dripped from the corners of his mouth. There was no trace of rationality in him. Erase, erase, erase. Destroy them all, destroy them all. Especially you, Kira. Rin, with the ball, charged directly towards Kira. I will obliterate you head-on, Kira. What is your weapon? Skill, speed, strength. I will devour you completely using the same methods. Rin's eyes were filled with madness, like a zombie that had discovered its prey, with drool continuously flowing. This was his flow, to bring out the potential in others and then utterly destroy them with the same means. Previously, his puppeteer tactics were the result of his ability to perceive and control the overall situation, a skill he had learned by emulating his older brother, Idoji Sae. But now, this was the essence of Rin. A football so insane that it bordered on ugliness. Everything was to be destroyed. Arrogance taken to the extreme, madness taken to the extreme. But at the same time, he unleashed his own abilities to the utmost. In the original work, Rin reached the flow state during the final showdown with the U20 national team, and even at the critical moment, he successfully intercepted the ball from Idoji Sae. However, due to the appearance of Kira, Rin's awakening occurred earlier than expected. The pressure brought by Kira was similar to what Sae had once given him, something he had never experienced before in their previous encounters. And Meguru's recent performance further fueled the twisted emotions within him. He yearned to surpass everyone, to crush every existence. Whether it was Sae or Kira, they had to be eliminated. I'll kill you, I'll kill you. Rin shouted loudly, his words muffled due to his protruding tongue. Pay a little attention to your personal image. It seems my previous suggestion for you to go back to elementary school and start over wasn't wrong. Kira blocked Rin's path, knowing better than anyone else the state Rin was currently in. The most insane, and at the same time, the most powerful. It could be said that their direct confrontation would definitively determine the outcome of this match. A true 1v1 that would determine the course of the game. The others almost simultaneously felt a suffocating sensation. They were well aware that they couldn't possibly participate in the battle between these two monsters. It was an existence that surpassed them on a different level. Skill, speed, strength, I will surpass you in everything. I will crush you, kill you, kill you. In doing so, nothing and no one will be able to restrain me anymore. Rin didn't slow down at all and charged directly towards Kira. However, when the distance between them was less than a meter, Rin suddenly came to a halt. The abrupt stop was just like what Kira had done before. Mikage Ryo's ability was imitation, but Rin was completely different. He had the power to draw out his opponent's abilities and then surpass them. With a quick pedal motion, he tested Kira's balance. However, Kira didn't fall for it. Instead, he took a step forward, actively pressuring Rin. But Rin remained unaffected. He immediately changed the rhythm of his movements. He flicked the ball with the back of his left foot, then swiftly lifted it with the heel, causing the ball to leap into the air and glide over Kira's head. At the same time, Rin accelerated sharply, preparing to sprint past Kira's side and complete a breakthrough. Excellent technique and rhythm. Meguru couldn't help but praise. Naturally, Kira wouldn't give Rin any opportunity to receive the ball. He immediately turned around, ready to block Rin's path and make the first contact with the ball. However, Rin was also aware of Kira's potential actions. He placed one hand between Kira and himself, attempting to disrupt Kira's block with a hand movement. The two of them were locked in a fierce struggle, and whoever touched the ball first would gain a significant advantage. Is Rin faster? Ryosuke shouted. As an attacker, Rin was facing the direction of the goal, so he could accelerate directly. Combined with the hand movement, he could gain a slightly more advanced position and potentially be the first to touch the ball. Whether it was technique, speed, strength, or body control, Rin had reached the pinnacle. The entire blue lock was no match for him. But now, Kira was at his peak. Total concentration breathing. Thunderclap flash. In an instant, Kira's body erupted with terrifying power, like a volcano spewing molten lava. Although Rin's arm initially blocked his path, the faster speed and strength allowed him to break free from the grip of the arm, even disrupting Rin's balance. What? I told you, the one who will win in the end will definitely be me. Stop right here. With that arrogant attitude, you can never defeat me. Kira completely blocked Rin's path and was the first to touch the ball. Stylish to the extreme. I can't compare. Jiyubei couldn't help but exclaim in this moment. He was well aware that in those few short seconds, Rin had displayed power, speed, and skills that had already reached an unsurpassable peak. That guy was a true monster. And yet, this monster still lost. He lost to Kira. Was Kira an existence that surpassed monsters? All the words of a ragtag group and ants, take them back and apologize honestly. At the moment of touching the ball, Kira had complete control over it, then swiftly turned around, skillfully shouldering Rin aside with his back, and made a long pass. After the members of the red team saw the trajectory of the ball clearly, they realized that Iki and the others were already sprinting towards the other half of the field at the fastest speed. Another goal. Chapter 73, Let's start. Soon, the final whistle of the match sounded, and several members of the red team were lying on the ground, gasping for breath. It was another 5-0 victory, and it seemed that the white team had won the match with an absolute advantage. But anyone who watched the match knew that the level of excitement and tension in this game surpassed anything seen before. I've lost. Oh no. We lost, it's all my fault. I'm so frustrated, I really wanted to win. Whether it was Jiyubei or Aoji with their terrifying physical abilities, they were already drenched in sweat. Even Meguru had reached the point of his legs cramping. A few meters away, Rin gritted his teeth and pounded the ground. This was his second defeat. Various emotions of unwillingness, hatred, and anger brewed in his heart. The intense emotions and high-intensity match made his face flush red, with veins bulging on his forehead. The match is over, and it was a very exciting one. Kira walked slowly towards the four members of the red team. His words were not meant to console them. Although the point difference seemed significant, it was only due to the smaller field and special rules. The combination of Rin and the others possessed a terrifying strength. If Rin and Meguru worked together to create opportunities, while Jiyubei and Aoji launched fierce attacks targeting the weakest points of the defense, they might have been able to give Kira more trouble. However, there were no if and regardless of team cooperation or individual skills, there was still a significant gap between the two teams. I should choose my teammates for the next round as well. Kira spoke slowly, without much hesitation. He already had an answer in his heart. Meguru, let's go to the next round together. He chose Meguru not only because they had a good relationship as former teammates, but also because he was practically the only choice. Among the four members of the red team, Meguru had the most normal personality, and he could also play a role in connecting the entire team. Although Rin possessed top-notch overall abilities, his personality and playing style were more likely to disrupt the team's rhythm. Moreover, Kira knew who they would face in the next round, a team of 5 players composed of top athletes from around the world. This team was put together by ego, and there was no consideration given to the possibility of anyone in the blue lock winning. Even the team Rin was originally in, as depicted in the original work, was easily crushed by their opponents. His goal was to show the players in the blue lock just how significant the gap was between them and the world's top players. But for Kira, this was just the next challenge. Kira, I will definitely kill you. And then, I will definitely kill you. From now on, you are my archenemy, and I will erase you. Just as Kira and the others were preparing to leave the field and move to the next area, Rin looked up, his eyes filled with uncontrollable anger, focusing on Kira's face as if he wanted to devour him alive. In his heart, Kira had become someone who must be completely crushed, just like Sae. Well, then come and give it a try. Kira didn't linger for a moment. After leaving these words behind, he directly exited the field and entered the passage to the next area. At the same time, the system prompt appeared once again. Congratulations! You have earned 150 points. The number of points obtained this time is almost double that of the previous match. Although Rin and the others lost, they will surely come back to fight again. The same must be true for Yoichi and Ryo. I didn't expect that as a loser, I would directly advance. Meguru said with a smile, then turned his head to look at Kira. But I still have to thank you, Kira. I feel like you saved me. Choosing you didn't require any consideration at all. I'm not talking about you choosing me, but on the field because I yearned to catch up to your footsteps. At that moment, it felt like I finally played the football I wanted. Meguru lowered his head, and the smile on his face became even more evident. Thank you, Kira. I think playing football together in the future will be even more enjoyable. After speaking, Meguru reached out his hand, ready to fist bump Kira, and the latter extended his hand as well. It's not a fist bump, it's a knife hand. Watch out! I knew it from the beginning. Block. Kira and the others had already arrived in front of the final gate. The words "Second Round Selection Exit" appeared prominently on the door. They pushed open the door, revealing a pentagonal black room and 5 large screens. Congratulations on passing the second round of selection, the raw talent. The projection of ego appeared on the screen. Perhaps you all noticed to some extent that both Meguru and Rin entered a highly focused state at a certain point in time. That is the flow state, an essential element for becoming top players. It was indeed a very subtle feeling. I couldn't help but enter that state, where all I could think of was attacking, Meguru said, bowing his head and looking at his hands, recalling that feeling. This is the formula for creating miracles, and you have now stepped into it. However, you have only touched the threshold, and there is still a long way to go before truly mastering it. Ego's gaze fell on Kira. In his eyes, only Kira had the ability to freely enter the flow state. In a sense, Kira's total concentration breathing belonged to his flow. Well, your second round of selection is now over, Ego said, extending 3 fingers. Next is the third round of selection. As I mentioned before, you will have the opportunity to compete against world-class players starting 24 hours from now. You will participate in a 5v5 match against the world players personally selected by me. Get ready to experience the world, you frogs at the bottom of the well. The 3-person team area. At this moment, most of the teams had gathered here, and many of them were hesitant to casually choose opponents. Without sufficient information, nobody wanted to engage in an uncertain battle. Yoichi and Hyoma's team had returned to this area once again. They had just defeated their opponents in the 2-person team area and had recruited Zantetsu from Team V as their teammate, making their way back to the 3-person team area. I wonder how Kira and Rin are doing. If everything goes as expected, they should have already met in the next area. I wonder if they'll have a match between them, Yoichi muttered to himself. In his eyes, Rin was on the same level as Kira, and both of them possessed a strength that far exceeded his imagination. Just at that moment, the doors of the match lobby opened once again. A resentful expression on his face, Rin returned to the 3-person team area with Jiyubei and Aoshi. The previously bustling lobby instantly fell into silence. Rin's gaze didn't linger on anyone for a moment. In his eyes, these people were nothing more than insignificant dust. Having already competed once today, Rin couldn't immediately participate in a second match. He didn't stay in the lobby, instead heading straight to the dormitory. For him, returning to this area was a great shame, being with these worthless and trashy individuals. Unforgivable, unforgivable, unforgivable. Rin clenched his teeth so hard that they almost bled. At the same time, flames burned in his gaze, as if he wanted to devour everyone around him. He sought revenge. He wanted Kira, who had brought him shame, to pay the price. After Rin and the others left the lobby, it gradually regained its sound. Hey, isn't that Rin? Did he lose? The existence that can defeat Rin, does it really exist within the Blue Lock? People started discussing, and almost everyone found it difficult to believe this fact. Someone has defeated Rin. In their eyes, Rin was already an unreachable pinnacle. Even those who hadn't heard of Rin, after witnessing his skills in the lobby, would be amazed. And yet, this level of existence actually lost the match? Only Yoichi and his group knew very well that the only person capable of sending Rin back here could be one person, Kira Ryosuke. Previously, Yoichi's team suffered a devastating defeat against Rin. Initially, he believed that Kira was on the same level as Rin, but it seemed he was gravely mistaken. Kira was an even more formidable presence. Meguru should have been taken away by Kira and the others. I can't afford to slow down my pace either. There seemed to be a hint of excitement in Yoichi's gaze as a fiery determination ignited within his heart. A few hours later, Kira and his teammates had arrived in their dormitory. Currently, their team was the only one in the 5-person team area. If a team lost a match, they would have to wait for 2 more days due to the rule of teammate reduction and the limitation of 1 match per day. Compared to the rooms in the previous areas, this 5-person room was much more luxurious, with various equipment and furniture, giving it a 5-star hotel-like feeling. On the screen inside the room, their next opponents were projected. 5 superstars. Leonardo Luna, the scion of the Spanish powerhouse club. Adam Blake, the goal-scoring king of the English League. Pablo Cavazos, who can deliver top-class free kicks. And the heavy tank, Da Silva. Iki exclaimed in surprise. Although his thick bangs covered his eyes, everyone could sense the astonishment in his gaze. Are all these guys really strong? Nagi asked with some confusion. Although he possessed remarkable football talent, he wasn't well versed in things like football stars and leagues. All of these players are world-class. Top-notch. Iki's voice trembled with excitement, unable to contain his emotions. He never expected that one day he would be able to compete against such top-level players. To be able to invite these people, Blue Lock is truly amazing. Ronsuk couldn't help but sigh. To face opponents of this level, it's a mix of fear and excitement. By the way, who's the person in the middle with the monk-like hairstyle? Meguru asked, holding his head. That's Julian Loki, a rising star who recently made a name for himself in the French League. Kira, what do you think? Facing opponents of this level, what are your thoughts? Meguru turned his head and looked at Kira, and everyone's gaze involuntarily fell on Kira. I don't have any particular feelings about it. We just need to give it our all. Kira calmly answered. Now that we've rested enough, it's time to prepare for training. Soon, Kira led the team to the training field in the 5-person team area. While others were training, Kira opened the system interface. Host, Kira Ryosuke. Competitiveness points, 260. Current skills. Thunder Breath, Total Concentration Breathing LV3 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 150 points. Thunder Breath, Thunderclap Flash LV3 Proficiency, 80.6%. Thunder Breath, Rise Spirit LV3 Proficiency, 60.3%. Thunder Breath, Thunder Swarm LV2 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 100 points. Chapter 74, The Strongest Opponents. Competitiveness points, 260 competitiveness points, 10. Total Concentration Breathing LV3 Total Concentration Breathing LV4. Thunder Swarm LV2 Thunder Swarm LV3. Kira quickly completed the upgrade for these 2 skills. The Thunder Swarm allows Kira to create more intricate curved passes or shots, while reaching LV4 in Total Concentration Breathing enables him to enter the state of total concentration more frequently and maintain it for a longer time. At LV3, Kira could already maintain the state of total concentration for nearly half of the time. With LV4, he would definitely be able to further extend that duration. At this rate of progression, if he were to upgrade it to LV5, Kira should be able to achieve a constant state of total concentration breathing. Maintaining the state of total concentration at all times, even while asleep, would lead to a qualitative leap in his physical abilities. However, the difficulty of upgrading from LV3 to LV4 was already very high. It was thanks to the points gained from the daily training that Kira could maintain an acceptable speed of progress. To upgrade from LV4 to LV5 would undoubtedly require even more time. But Kira was willing to accept the challenge. I still have 10 points left, not much, but let's continue practicing in the practice space. A smile appeared on Kira's face as he entered the practice space. The next day, Kira and his teammates stepped into the corridor leading to the competition venue. Meguru's body was trembling slightly, not just out of nervousness, but more so out of excitement. Being able to compete against world-class players was an opportunity that countless people dreamed of. Ryosuke and Ikki had serious expressions on their faces, and even Nagi, who usually had a lazy demeanor, wore an unusually serious expression. However, just as they were nearing the gate, Kira suddenly stopped in his tracks. "What's wrong, Kira?" All eyes turned to Kira. "Ego selected 5 world-class players to compete against us. Their goal is probably just to show us the gap in strength between us and the world's top players and assess our own abilities. They have no intention of letting us win." As Kira spoke, he slowly raised his head. At the same time, a smile appeared on his face. "But it's precisely because of that we have to hit them hard. If we can defeat them, it will definitely shock the world. So let's go all out and show those guys how amazing we are." "Yeah." Meguru nodded vigorously. "We must win fair and square. We will definitely win. I don't want to experience the feeling of losing again." The other 3 also nodded in unison. A fire of determination ignited in their hearts. "Well then, let's go." Kira nodded and resumed walking. Finally, they arrived at the competition venue. The world-class players' team stood on the other side of the field, observing them with a gaze reminiscent of visiting animals in a zoo. "Indeed, just as I said, their muscles aren't developed at all. You owe me $10,000. That guy, Ego, said that some of them might pose a threat to us. Don't make me laugh. Although it's earlier than expected, did that little brother of Itoshi Sae not come? I thought he would be the first. But it doesn't matter. Let's finish the match quickly and go back to the hotel to rest. It's comfortable earning some extra money." Except for Loki, the other players communicated in English, completely disregarding the Blue Lock team. They believed that the opponents couldn't understand English, so they freely taunted. "They're speaking English, right? I don't understand." Meguru furrowed his brow and spoke. "Kira." Nagi turned his head to Kira. Although he always appeared indifferent, he was actually a top student at school and naturally understood what these people were saying. "I know." Kira narrowed his eyes slightly and locked his gaze on them. He knew exactly what these people were saying. "Hello, everyone." Julian Loki quickly approached Kira and the others, greeted them, but not in English. He was much more polite than the other 4. "Pleased to meet you." Kira shook hands with Loki and carefully observed him. Although he wasn't particularly tall, the outline of his muscles was clearly visible even through his clothes. Julian Loki, the god sprinter. Not only him, but the others also possessed formidable strength. The intensity of this match far surpassed anything they had faced before. In the original work, they didn't take it seriously and easily overwhelmed the team Rin and Yoichi. However, in the eyes of Kira, the outcome of this match was not easy to determine. The team quickly returned to their own half, and as the whistle sounded, the match officially began. Blue Lock team had the first possession. Kira kicked off and passed the ball to Meguru, who immediately sprinted towards the opponent's half at top speed. "Oh, has it already started?" Standing in front of Meguru was Pablo Cavazos, also known as the Freckled Baby. He had the smallest build among the 5, but his strength should not be underestimated. However, at this moment, Cavazos seemed very lazy and not at all serious. Meguru used a swift bicycle kick turn to successfully get past Cavazos, then immediately crossed the ball. Nagi was already in position. It was a high-arching pass, but it wasn't difficult for Nagi to receive it. He hooked the ball in the air, executed an incredible ball control, and simultaneously rotated his body. In an instant, he transformed into a shooting posture. A powerful shot. 1-0, they took the lead. "We did it." Ryosuke couldn't help but cheer. They scored in such a short amount of time at the beginning of the game, and it was against world-class players. This undoubtedly boosted their morale, and everything was going smoother than they had imagined. "The real match hasn't even begun yet," Kira said slowly. Because he knew that the opponents weren't taking it seriously, leaving themselves undefended, as if no matter how many goals they scored, they could still turn the tables and win. That was absolute arrogance. "Not bad, but why don't you play a little more seriously?" Blake said slowly. "Yeah, in the contract, if we lose, we won't get paid. Anyway, let's just not lose. There's a bonus for scoring goals too." The other players showed slightly more serious expressions, but in their eyes, this match was still no different from a game. "Okay. Loki nodded and cast a calm gaze towards the opponent's goal. The possession changed, and the world team took the kickoff. Loki calmly brought the ball past the halfway line, and Ikki immediately stepped forward to mark him tightly. "May I ask, is that okay?" Loki looked at Ikki and asked in a relaxed tone. "What?" Ikki frowned, and at the same time, he used his ability to diligently observe his surroundings, trying to see what passing options the opponent might have. "There are loopholes all over my attacking route." And at that moment, Loki said slowly. Before Ikki could react, a gust of wind slammed into his face like a wall. In the next breath, Loki was already behind him. "What? What kind of explosive speed is this?" Ikki didn't even have time to react. Loki simply blew past him with pure speed, without any change of direction or fancy dribbling. It was as if a jet flew directly past him. When Ikki turned his head, Loki was already far away, heading straight for the goal. "Stop him!" Ryosuke and Nagi immediately stepped forward to intercept, but before they could make any defensive moves, Loki broke through with an even more terrifying speed. In front of him, there was no one left. 1-1. "What? What kind of speed is that?" Ryosuke's voice trembled as he looked at Loki with an incredulous gaze. Within the blue lock, there was simply no one who could compare to him. Neither Tsurugi Zantetsu nor Chijiri Hyoma, in terms of speed, could even come close to him. This guy was a true monster. "Pass the ball next time, you bastard." The other teammates in the team laughed and said to Loki, as if they were already used to his incredible speed. And Loki had a relaxed smile on his face. "All right, I've had enough fun. Let's quickly finish the match and go take a shower." Although Loki's gestures and manners were more polite than the others, he was the most arrogant one. For him, this was just a game, and there was no need to exert any more effort. The gap in strength was absolute. As the game resumed, Megara dribbled the ball forward again, but just as he was about to get past Kavasaz once more, the opponent suddenly moved forward. With just one move, he cleanly stole the ball from Megara's feet. Megara's eyes widened, unable to believe that the opponent could easily take the ball away like that. "Your rhythm is threatening, but your moves are too predictable." That was the only comment Kavasaz had for Megara, who possessed top-notch dribbling skills within the blue lock. After completing the steal, Kavasaz immediately made a long pass to the front, where England's goal-scoring king, Blake, had been waiting. "There's no way I'll let you receive the ball." Ryosuke shouted loudly, wanting to contest the ball with Blake. But in the moment their bodies made contact, Ryosuke felt as if he had collided with a solid wall. The physical qualities and control of balance were incomparable. Blake stood firm. "What? What kind of monster are you?" Ryosuke exerted all his strength, but he couldn't make the opponent budge even a centimeter. "I'm not interested in men's bodies." Blake remained relaxed, then turned around and used his broad shoulders to forcefully pin the strong-bodied Ryosuke behind him, while delivering a powerful kick. His target was none other than the heavy tank, Dada Silva, who had already positioned himself in front of the goal. The burly Silva stood like a towering mountain in front of the goal. No matter how hard Nagi tried, he couldn't block the opponent's position either. His physical qualities were even more terrifying than Blake's. "You're too weak, too weak. Are you guys really eating well? You're like bean sprouts, so fragile." Silva laughed madly. The advantage he had in terms of physique allowed him to easily receive the pass from Blake. While fending off Nagi with his hand, he turned around. Even though Nagi had decent physical qualities, he posed no threat in Silva's eyes, like dust floating in the air that would dissipate with a single blow. "We're taking the lead." A triumphant expression appeared on Silva's face as he prepared to take a shot. And at that moment, a figure suddenly appeared beside Silva. "Is that so?" Kira had come over for defensive support. In the instant Silva turned around, Kira had already closed in, not intending to give the opponent any space to turn. Arrogant brat! Silva didn't even consider Kira a threat, planning to rely on his physical qualities to forcefully knock Kira away. But in the moment their bodies made contact, Silva's expression changed. Bang! In that moment, he felt as if he had collided with a massive boulder. "What?" A surprised expression appeared on Silva's face for the first time. He didn't expect to not gain the advantage in the physical contact, and due to underestimating the impact of the collision, his balance was also disrupted, causing him to fall to the ground. Kira seized the moment when Silva's center of gravity shifted and successfully completed the steal. "What? Both Blake and Cavasaz exclaimed. They couldn't believe that Silva had been stolen from by Kira. Even if they weren't in a completely serious state, this shouldn't have happened. Damn, the ground is so slippery. Silva complained, finding an excuse. He couldn't believe that he was at a disadvantage in the physical collision. It must be because the ground was too slippery. Why are you still looking for excuses? Little bean sprout. And at that moment, Kira looked down at the fallen Silva, his gaze sharp and icy, like a blade. He spoke slowly, in English. Chapter 75, Punk. So, you understood all along. Silva stared fixedly at Kira, his gaze carrying a hint of surprise. Yeah, I understood. Kira smiled at the opponent, looking calm as he spoke. He stepped on the ball and wasn't in a hurry to attack. Although you're called a heavy tank, you're much weaker than I imagined. Are you not injured, little bean sprout? Do you want me to help you up? Don't get carried away. It's just that the ground was too slippery. Silva burned with anger, his eye twitching in the corner. He clenched his fist, producing a cracking sound at his joints, and finally stood up from the ground. Well then, try your best to catch up to me. Kira simply said a sentence and already started to move towards Silva's half of the field. The counterattack begins. Silva actually lost in a physical confrontation? How is that possible? Cavasaz said incredulously. That can't happen. It must have been a slip, Blake said, his expression gradually becoming serious. Let's give him a little lesson and show him the real gap. By now, Kira had crossed the halfway line, and Blake voluntarily stepped forward to mark him closely. His expression was very serious. They're getting angry. Ikki sensing that the opponent had become serious. Just now, Loki effortlessly broke through their defense alone, and there were still 4 players on his team who were at the same level as him. If all of them were to take it seriously, the situation would be truly terrifying. But just as Ikki felt somewhat lost, a hand rested on his shoulder. It was Meguru. Kira fearlessly stepped into the realm of the world's elite. We can't lag behind. Meguru smiled and said to Ikki. Yeah. Ikki nodded and followed the rest of his teammates, trailing behind Kira as they stormed into the opponent's half. At this moment, Kira had already reached Blake's presence. Blake willingly approached, his gaze becoming intensely focused, completely different from his previous careless demeanor. Kid, prepare to witness the gap firsthand. Blake said slowly. His tactic was clear, to actively engage in physical contact with Kira. Although Blake believed that Kira couldn't have been overpowered by Silva in terms of strength, he still wanted to personally confirm it. Furthermore, Kira had just retorted Silva with words, and Blake couldn't accept such a guy looking down on his team. As an international superstar, he had to reclaim his territory. He had to teach this guy a lesson. Hey, Blake, there's no need for that. Cavasaz shouted, but Blake completely ignored his words. By now, Blake had closed in on Kira, with superb skills and excellent physical qualities that could easily force attackers into making mistakes. It could be said that within the blue lock, hardly anyone could get past Blake in a one-on-one situation. This was an absolute gap in physical qualities. Normally, when faced with such tight defense, most people would choose to decelerate immediately and then seek an opportunity to break through. But at this moment, Kira didn't slow down at all. He didn't dodge in the slightest and directly made physical contact with Blake. He didn't slow down. Is he trying to prevent Silva from flanking him from behind? Cavasaz exclaimed, while Luna beside him furrowed his brow. No, this guy isn't worried about Silva. He simply accepted Blake's challenge. He wants to beat Blake in a 1v1 face-off. As world-class players themselves, Luna knew very well about Blake's individual defensive ability. For these 16 or 17-year-old kids, it was simply impossible to surpass such a formidable obstacle. But at this moment, Kira fearlessly engaged in close combat with Blake. Blake leaned forward, swiftly extending his leg like a sharp spear, directly aiming for the football under Kira's feet. However, Kira reacted quickly and immediately flicked the ball back with his right foot, controlling it under his own body. Good. Blake unconsciously praised. With just one move, Blake realized that Kira was definitely not an ordinary person, not the average player they had expected. Since that's the case, let me increase the intensity. Excitement appeared on Blake's face as he made his position even more aggressive. He leaned his body forward, intending to disrupt Kira's balance with his shoulder and arms. And at the moment his shoulder made contact with Kira, it felt like he had collided with an impenetrable wall. Perhaps not on the same level as Silva, but Blake's physical qualities could definitely be described as explosive. However, even so, he couldn't gain any advantage from Kira. What's going on with this guy? Blake was extremely surprised. In that moment of physical contact, he realized that Silva's fall earlier wasn't due to the slippery ground. This guy's physical qualities had truly reached a terrifying level. It seems like you're not doing so well either, old man. Is it because you didn't restrain your body and became weak? Kira still maintained a relaxed expression as he looked at Blake beside him. You little punk! Blake was clearly provoked, and a surge of anger rose within him. Originally, they had only signed a contract with Ego to scout players within Blue Lock. For top-tier players like Blake, such a thing was simply a money-making opportunity, something they could easily handle. But Blake didn't expect that a match that was supposed to have no suspense would force him to take it seriously. Blake continued to shift his weight, pressing his entire body onto Kira, using his body to generate even greater power and further oppress his opponent. However, he still couldn't gain any advantage, as if an ordinary person trying to move a mountain. And at this moment, Kira accelerated further. He almost single-handedly carried Blake's weight and took big strides forward. His speed gradually increased, the ball still firmly under his control, while Blake struggled to keep up, losing his balance and being left behind. You annoying brat! Blake cursed. Although he felt dissatisfied, he had to admit deep down that in this round of confrontation, he had lost to Kira. This guy actually beat Blake. He didn't seem to be holding back just now. Seeing Blake being bypassed, Cavazos immediately moved forward to defend. Although his physical qualities were inferior to Blake and Silva, he possessed agility and technique superior to others, allowing him to easily intercept the ball from Meguru. Kira noticed Cavazos coming to defend, but he didn't slow down. He still chose to charge towards the side of his opponent. Want to rely on speed to overpower me? Cavazos thought to himself while adjusting his body posture, carefully observing Kira's dribbling rhythm, searching for the most suitable moment to intercept. He didn't slow down. It seems like he's not planning to make a change of direction. It'll be easier to intercept. Cavazos contemplated this and leaned his body backward. And at the moment when Kira was about to make contact with Cavazos, he suddenly stopped. An abrupt halt. This move tested one's core strength and balance far more than it appeared. With excellent rhythm sense, Kira created a decent space for himself. Don't underestimate me. Cavazos reacted very quickly, and because he was lighter in weight, his inertia was also smaller. He forcefully stomped one foot on the ground, forcibly maintaining his body's balance. He immediately pressed forward, not giving Kira any chance to break through. At this moment, Cavazos was already taking it seriously. He was fully focused on Kira. It seems that there are indeed extraordinary individuals in Blue Lock. Cavazos said seriously. Your movement rhythm is excellent, even better than that guy just now. Coupled with your physique, which seems to be quite good, you will have a bigger stage in the future. Perhaps, but my current goal is to win in the present. Kira replied with a smile. Although you're strong, it's impossible for you to defeat us. The result of this match is based on your failure. After all, if you lose, you won't get a single penny, right? Kira narrowed his eyes slightly. Victory and defeat are common in football. Don't blame me for it. Just as Cavazos finished speaking, Kira moved again. Like Meguru, he used the bicycle motion, continuously circling his legs in front of the ball, but his speed was faster than Meguru's and his rhythm was even more impressive. Cavazos was highly concentrated. He felt the pressure from Kira's movements, which was no less than that in his own league. The rhythm is excellent, the frequency is fast, and there's no opportunity for interception. Tricky. Cavazos pondered while pressing forward. Not only that, Blake and Silva had already come to double team from behind. As long as they could delay a few seconds, they could completely block Kira. But Kira would never give them that opportunity. Thunderclap flash. Kira's movements suddenly changed. Although he had been using fancy moves, he suddenly surged forward, catching Cavazos off guard. Cavazos hadn't expected Kira to choose a straight breakthrough. Damn it! Cavazos turned around desperately, trying to catch up with Kira. As a world-class football star, he had been surpassed by a relatively unknown high school athlete. Unacceptable. What on earth was going on with this guy? While Kavasaz was striving to catch up with Kira, he realized that the ball wasn't even at Kira's feet. At the moment when Kira passed him and made him turn around, Kira used his blind spot to make a pass. When Kavasaz turned his head to look, he saw the ball flying like an incredibly precise missile towards a certain direction. Hey, are you planning to pass over my head? That's underestimating me too much. In another area, Luna carefully analyzed the trajectory of the football's flight, then leaped high, preparing to intercept directly. But the moment he jumped up, he found that the ball's trajectory was different from what he had imagined. It deviated slightly to the left in mid-air. What? A knuckleball? Quite capable, hey? Luna was somewhat surprised. Kira was able to control the trajectory of the ball so perfectly that it even misled him. And beside Luna, someone had already reached the landing spot of the ball. Nico Iki. There was no one defending in front of him. Shoot! 2-1. Iki was filled with excitement. He rushed towards Kira and forcefully high-fived him. You're amazing, Kira. Iki's voice was trembling a bit because he had just witnessed Kira successfully dominating these world-class players on the field. Although it was unbelievable, Iki knew very well that Kira had stepped into the realm of the world. Kira, he actually got past world-class players. In the control room, Anri's voice also trembled. She couldn't believe what was happening before her eyes. She knew Kira was strong, and he had even easily defeated Rin. But to win against world-class players, it was too exaggerated. This is what I was worried about, Anri. On one hand, Kira's ideology clashes with mine, and his presence is likely to cause problems for my plan. But on the other hand, Ego remained silent for a few seconds before continuing. I am indeed very curious to see what heights he can reach. Chapter 76, This is the Real Lightning. By the way, Mr. Ego, the higher UPS have found out about your signing with these players, and they seem a bit angry. Anri glanced at the message on her phone and then looked at Ego with a solemn expression. They said they will hold an emergency meeting tomorrow. No matter. Ego pushed his glasses up and his gaze didn't stray from the screen for a moment, as if the high-ranking officials of the Football Association were insignificant. Regardless of the outcome of the match, make sure to make a copy of the footage. That guy, damn it. On the field, Blake gritted his teeth and directed his gaze towards Kira, wiping the sweat off his forehead. He never expected that playing with a group of ordinary high school players would make him break a sweat. In the previous round, Blake and the others were in a more serious state, treating it as if it were an official match. But even so, they still allowed Kira to successfully perform. Damn it, if it weren't for the slippery ground. Silva clenched his fist, wearing a dissatisfied expression. Cavazos, on the other hand, just held his head and said, it's not the ground's fault. This guy is indeed extraordinary, not your average player. I can't believe there's someone of this caliber in this country, and he's just a 16 or 17-year-old kid. Unbelievable. Don't forget, if we lose, we won't get a single penny. Luna reminded everyone in the team. This must be the person Mr. Ego mentioned. Meanwhile, Loki stared unwaveringly at Kira's figure, his previously indifferent gaze now tinged with curiosity. Earlier, Ego had mentioned that someone might pose a threat to these world-class players, but everyone thought he was joking and didn't take it seriously. But now, Loki had changed his mind. He realized that Kira was indeed the person Ego had mentioned. Loki quickly walked up to Kira and politely asked, "Hello, may I ask how to address you?" His proactive inquiry about Kira's name meant that Loki fully recognized him as a person. "Kira, pleased to meet you," Kira replied with a smile. "To be asked for your name by a famous superstar, I'm truly envious." Both Meguru and Ryosuke couldn't help but sigh. The previous superstars never bothered to ask for their names. To those superstars, the people in the Blue Lock were merely passing guests, and there was no need to specially inquire and remember their names. Among them, the most prominent Loki was now initiating a conversation with Kira and asking for his name. This clearly indicated that he highly valued Kira's presence. "We were rude with our earlier words. I apologize here," Loki's tone was earnest. Since Kira could speak English, it meant that he had heard what Blake, Silva, and the others had said earlier. Although it goes against regulations, if you have any intentions of joining other leagues, I can introduce you, including my P.X.G leagues. Due to his own contract and league's regulations, Loki couldn't directly recruit players. However, he subtly hinted at the possibility. "Oh my! Ikki was so astonished that they couldn't find words to speak. This was an opportunity countless players had dreamed of, and now it had presented itself to Kira. His performance truly deserved such recognition. If there's a chance in the future, I will consider it seriously, Kira calmly replied, but the most important thing now is the ongoing match. You're right. It was my fault earlier. I am sorry to all of you once again, Loki smiled upon hearing Kira's words, narrowing his eyes slightly. So from now on, we're going to be truly serious. Be prepared, he said. Loki's eyes reflected Kira's figure. Even though he effortlessly tore through Ikki's defenses earlier, he hadn't been completely serious. But now, Kira had piqued Loki's interest, and he was finally ready to give it his all. For the first time, he saw these people as his equal opponents. While Loki's face wore a polite smile, there was a powerful aura emanating from him. Weren't you serious with that speed just now? Ikki swallowed nervously. It looks like we're going to be exhausted in the upcoming match, Nagi added. Loki returned to his own half of the field and waved to his other 4 teammates, saying, Guys, if we lose, we won't get any money. Let's give it our all. You little rascal, you're quite good at bossing people around, Blake said, though it was evident that he was filled with fighting spirit. Indeed, Silva agreed, this guy is not to be underestimated. Maybe my league can also recruit talent like him in the future. The rest of the players were also ignited with the desire to win. This was no longer just an assessment match, it had turned into a full-fledged battle. The game continued. Kavassos passed the ball directly to Loki, who immediately sprinted forward with the ball. However, Kira stood in front of Loki, blocking his path. Your positioning is good, but for me, it's still full of loopholes. In an instant, Loki's aura underwent another change. His gaze became exceptionally focused, and his mental strength was highly concentrated. He had entered the state of flow. The ability to freely enter the state of flow was the first criterion for becoming a world-level player. Try to keep up with me. Loki's leg muscles tightened, and he unleashed all his power in an instant. Like a black lightning bolt, he whizzed past in a split second. This was world-class explosive speed. Loki, known as the God Sprinter. So fast, even faster than before. Ikki was stunned, unable to move their bodies even a fraction, as they saw Loki launch at the fastest speed, from the halfway line to right in front of the goal in an instant. But there was something that surprised Ikki even more. Kira was still standing next to Loki, blocking his shooting position. He kept up with Loki's speed. This guy is incredible. The other world-class players exclaimed in awe. Even they couldn't fully keep up with Loki's incredible speed. But this guy named Kira managed to keep up. Perhaps we are witnessing the birth of another superstar no less than Loki. Luna sighed. At that moment, Loki himself was also surprised. His eyes widened as he looked at Kira in disbelief. Whether in his own league or on the international stage, he had already torn through the defenses of all opponents with his speed, creating one miraculous goal after another. Even the defenders of those teams included superstar-level individuals, but none of them could restrict Loki's attacks. But at this very moment, Kira kept up with Loki's speed. Not only possessing world-class power but also world-class speed. Loki looked at Kira in front of him, who stood in his way, limiting the shooting angle. There were hardly any people who could accomplish this. However, this aspect only made Loki more excited. He had encountered an opponent who could compete with him in terms of speed for the first time. So, can you still keep up with me? Loki didn't slow down at all. He used all his strength to stomp on the ground, instantly changing direction. The terrifying explosive force made his cleats almost sink deep into the soil. An instantaneous change of direction without any deceleration. Not only that, but Loki also possessed tremendous endurance without slowing down for a long time and had a large stride in his dribbling ability. In the state of flow, his speed was further enhanced. One could say he was the ultimate assassin who effortlessly targeted the opponent's goal. However, Kira was not at a disadvantage either. Thunderclap flash. Kira intercepted Loki in front of him with an even more super speed, but Loki suddenly changed direction, seeking the defensive gap in Kira's movements. Not only that, but his speed has been further enhanced. This is Loki's true speed. This is the real lightning. Can you keep up with this? The thunderclap flash gave Kira a terrifying burst of speed that surpassed Loki in an instant. However, if used for running, it could only be a short-distance straight-line sprint. When faced with Loki's insane multi-stage long-distance sprints, Kira might be at a disadvantage. However, Kira had his own way of dealing with it. After reaching level 3 with the Thunderclap Flash and undergoing extensive training, Kira developed a new technique based on it. Thunderclap Flash, 6-fold. Using the Thunderclap Flash 6 times in a row. First, gather the power of the Thunderclap Flash in one foot and take the first step with force. Before the other foot touches the ground, gather the power of the Thunderclap Flash again, allowing for the continuous use of the Thunderclap Flash for a period of time. Moreover, it is possible to freely change the direction of the sprint midway, achieving a super change of direction. Previously, Kira was able to perform abrupt stops from a high-speed sprint using a similar technique. However, this ability also has its limits. The consecutive use of multiple bursts drastically increases the physical strain caused by the Thunderclap Flash. In a state of total concentration breathing, if used more than 6 times in a short period, it would still result in significant leg soreness, as before. With the subsequent upgrades in breathing techniques and the Thunderclap Flash, this kind of strain should be significantly reduced. However, that is a matter for later. For the current match, the Thunderclap Flash, 6-fold is more than enough. Loki performs consecutive changes of direction at top speed, yet Kira still stands firmly in front of him. This is simply the domain of monsters. Ikki wiped the sweat pouring down his back. The competition between Kira and Loki had completely surpassed his understanding. This was a battle between monsters, where there was no room for ordinary people to intervene. However, Ikki certainly wouldn't stand still. At this moment, Kira was engaged in a battle with the world's top opponent, and Ikki couldn't afford to lag behind. As he contemplated, he quickly ran towards a certain direction. This guy is actually on par with Loki. Silva couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes. This was a sight that couldn't be seen even in the world's top leagues. There were very few players in the realm of speed who could keep up with Loki, let alone his terrifying endurance to maintain top speed for a long time. And this guy called Kira had actually firmly blocked Loki's path. No, it's definitely not just being on par. In fact, every time he successfully positions himself before Loki has a chance to shoot, and as a defender, he repeatedly blocks the attacker's path. He's already won. Luna pursed his lips. Although it's hard to believe, Kira's speed is above Loki's. Is there really a monster within the blue lock? At this moment, Loki's forehead was covered in sweat. He looked at Kira with a hint of fear in his eyes. This was the first time he had encountered someone who could hold him back like this. You're a terrifying guy. I can't surpass you in speed. Loki finally slowed down and looked at Kira, openly acknowledging his opponent's formidable speed. Did you have enough fun? I recall you saying earlier that you were already done playing. Kira smiled and replied in the same manner, didn't you also say that there were numerous defensive loopholes? Can't you find your way through such big loopholes? Sorry, I take back that statement for now, Loki responded, while at the same time hearing Silva's voice beside him. Hey, you idiot, pass the ball. Loki didn't choose to keep the ball, giving up the opportunity to continue his one-on-one with Kira. Instead, he passed the ball to Silva. Although it seemed like an ordinary pass, it indicated one thing. Loki admitted his defeat. In the one-on-one situation, he wasn't able to get past Kira. While there were reasons such as the limited space that hindered him from fully utilizing his speed advantage, Loki had to acknowledge that Kira's speed just now surpassed his own. Just as Loki chose to pass the ball, a figure suddenly emerged from the side, directly intercepting the path of the pass and completing a steal. Ikki. Where did this guy come from? Silva was extremely surprised. At this moment, Ikki had already started dribbling and launched a counter-attack. Chapter 77, The Birth of a Miracle. Don't even think about getting past. In the instant Ikki touched the ball, Silva, who was nearby, immediately closed in. He didn't expect Ikki to appear in that position, intercepting the pass from Loki to himself. After witnessing the terrifying one-on-one between Kira and Loki, Ikki took a gamble. He bet that Kira could hold off Loki and force him to pass the ball. And he seized that moment to complete the steal. This little guy, could he really run that fast before? But it doesn't matter. In front of Silva, Ikki was like a speck of dust, easily crushed. There was an insurmountable gap between them in terms of physical prowess. Although Ikki's speed was slightly faster than what Silva had imagined, as long as Silva applied a little pressure, he could definitely force Ikki to make a mistake. In the instant Silva closed in, Iki didn't hesitate at all and forcefully passed the ball. Meguru successfully received the ball. We can't let Kira steal the spotlight alone. We need to show our skills too. Meguru skillfully controlled the ball with his chest and run fast with the ball. Haven't you learned your lesson? Meguru had only taken a few steps forward with the ball when Cavazos swiftly intercepted him at top speed. In the previous few encounters, Cavazos easily stole the ball from Meguru's feet. Meguru's proud dribbling skills were insignificant in front of Cavazos. And now, they were about to face each other head-on once again. Enough talk, enough talk! Meguru shouted loudly, rushing towards Cavazos without hesitation. Cavazos noticed the change in Meguru. Meguru's mental focus became sharper, and his speed and rhythm became more power. At this moment, Meguru once again entered the state of flow. Although he still couldn't reach the level of freely entering the state of flow at will, his strong determination to keep up with world class brought him back into this state. If Kira had the ability to compete against these top-level players, how could Meguru miss this opportunity? He charged directly towards Cavazos, and then swiftly executed a pendulum feint to get past him. That move won't get past me. I told you your actions are too predictable. As Cavazos spoke, he keenly noticed a flaw in Meguru's dribbling movements and immediately moved forward to intercept. But in that instant, Meguru's movement changed. His right foot moved like a brush, flicking the ball that was originally prepared to be pulled back to his left foot, lifting it on his toe, and then with a powerful kick, sending the ball soaring through the air, flying directly over Cavazos's head. The previous feint was just a trap set by Meguru for Cavazos, enticing him to lean forward and attempt a steal, causing him to lose his position. The dribbling has become even smoother and more fluid, this guy. Cavazos realized that Meguru had undergone a change, undoubtedly becoming stronger. Although not on Kira's level, Cavazos still felt a slight pressure from Meguru. This was something Meguru couldn't achieve before. What's going on? Don't even think about getting past. Cavazos became more serious, and in an instant, he also entered the state of flow. His speed increased, and although Meguru had just evaded him, Cavazos used his agility advantage to directly block Meguru's path. You still couldn't get past me. Meguru was somewhat surprised, but it was within reason. Even though he successfully entered the realm of flow, there was still an insurmountable gap in strength between Meguru and Cavazos. However, that gap had indeed been narrowed in that brief moment. Now, I won't pass the ball to anyone who hasn't exceeded my expectations. Meguru protected the ball diligently while observing the positions of the others. However, your appearance has already gone beyond my expectations. Let's see what you're capable of. That's interesting. Excitement once again appeared on Meguru's face as he abruptly passed the ball. And positioned at the receiving end was Blake. Is it because of the pressure that forced you into making a mistake? Then I'll gladly accept this ball. Blake was preparing to control the ball with his chest. But at that moment, he caught a glimpse of a figure pouncing like a fierce tiger. This ball is meant for me. Ryosuke had arrived. In his state of supercharged sprint, he charged straight toward Meguru's pass. Even though Blake's formidable physical qualities had already caused him trouble before, Ryosuke did not fear the challenge. To become a hero, one must face various challenges. Just like Kira, daring to directly challenge world-class superstars. Previously, due to the gap in identity and strength, Ryosuke had become somewhat hesitant, but after witnessing the battle between Kira and Loki, his fighting spirit was reignited. Foolish decision. Blake turned his head to look at Ryosuke. At this moment, Blake had already secured the position, undoubtedly being able to touch the ball earlier. How could I remain indifferent? However, at this moment, Ryosuke seemed to erupt with boundless power, continuing to charge forward, fearlessly engaging in physical contact with Blake. In the instant of contact, the tremendous impact slightly disrupted Blake's balance. What? Blake was incredibly astonished. In theory, it was impossible for Ryosuke to overpower him, but at this moment, it seemed like the opponent's strength had surged like an explosion. This is the awakening of Ryosuke. He has also stepped into the realm of flow. Seizing the opportunity in that instant, Ryosuke blocked Blake's position and extended his hand to hold him back, securing a better position for himself. Meguru's pass has also descended. You! Blake was visibly infuriated. He unleashed his full strength as well. Your dominant foot is your left foot, you can't possibly shoot in front of me. The slight advantage that Ryosuke had previously gained was instantly wiped out. Blake regained his balance and relentlessly pressed Ryosuke, destabilizing him. Ryosuke struggled to generate power as his body lost its balance. In terms of core strength, Ryosuke couldn't even compare to Blake. And Blake had long noticed Ryosuke's left-footed playing style through subtle movements. Ryosuke's left foot was now closer to Blake, making it impossible for the latter to give him an opportunity to shoot with his left foot. But at this moment, Megura's ball had already reached Ryosuke. "Don't underestimate me!" Ryosuke roared, his voice thunderous. Simultaneously, he swung his right foot and took a direct shot. This was the first time Ryosuke forcefully used his right foot to shoot in a match. After completing the shot, Ryosuke lost support from his right leg and fell to the ground due to the loss of balance. But he paid no attention to the pain in his body, his gaze fixed on the ball speeding away. This shot was also filled with power, like a heavy cannonball heading straight for the goal. "I can block it." Silva wanted to rush over and intercept, but Nagi stood in his way. "I won't let you pass," Nagi said to Silva with utmost seriousness, emitting a powerful aura that was absent before. "Get out of the way." Silva erupted in anger, his full strength surging forth. Using his tank-like physique, he forcefully pushed Nagi aside. Even though Nagi was a genius, there was no comparison between his physical qualities and strength compared to Silva. But he successfully delayed Silva for 1 second. That 1 second prevented Silva from interfering with this shot. This goal, almost unhindered. Did he score? Everyone's gaze converged on Ryosuke's shot. And just as the ball was about to score, a figure resembling a cheetah darted out from the other side. Leonardo Luna, the Prince of Re.al. He raced with all his might to reach the goal, leaping forcefully and using his head to block Ryosuke's shot. The ball rebounded, and Luna fell to the ground. "Damn it!" Ryosuke, lying on the ground, pounded the surface in frustration. He had given his all in that shot, coming so close to scoring. But after all, the opponent was a world-class player. Luna anticipated the worst the moment Blake was out of position and immediately rushed to the goal, using his keen senses and extraordinary physical abilities to block the shot. That was close, really close. Luna wiped the sweat off his forehead and stood up from the ground. Ryosuke's shot just now was extremely close, but it did pose a threat to them. In that instant, the world team's 5 members were undoubtedly tense to the extreme. "What's going on with these guys?" Silva asked in utter confusion. He could sense that the entire opposing team seemed to have undergone a transformation. Originally, only Kira seemed qualified to compete against them. However, the other few individuals displayed unparalleled power in that last exchange. Although they were certainly far from reaching the level of these top players, the gap between them had significantly narrowed in an instant. What exactly was going on? They managed to push the world's top players to this extent? How did they do it? Henri stared in disbelief at the screen, her body trembling with excitement. Just a little more, just a little. It's not just a little difference. It was impossible for that shot to go in. They have an insurmountable gap in terms of skills and physical abilities. It's only natural that the shot was blocked. Ego pushed his glasses and paused for a moment. After a few seconds, he spoke slowly. "But I have to admit, those superstar players did feel threatened just now." The lion sensed a threat from an ant. That alone can be considered a miracle. But how did they do it? Even Ryosuke, who isn't good at shooting with his right foot, but now. Henri was full of doubts, as this match completely exceeded her imagination. Because of Kira Ryosuke. Ego focused his gaze on Kira's face on the screen. There's no doubt that Kira restrained Loki. And this action was like a flame that ignited the fuel in the hearts of the others, causing them to explode with power and surpass themselves in that moment. Though Ego's tone was calm, deep inside, he couldn't help but admire Kira. It was precisely because of Kira's actions that a series of miracles were created. He was the equation for victory itself. At this moment, Ego, for the first time, felt a wavering in his beliefs. Kira hadn't scored a goal in this match yet, but every goal was somehow connected to him. No matter where he was on the field or what actions he took, he could influence the course of the game. And the recent match had truly made he feels excited. "Let's stop the match, Henri." "Stop the match? Why? Isn't this the climax right now?" "I was startled by Leonardo Luna's save just now. The risk of injury is too great. If those superstars get injured on our watch, the clubs will surely put immense pressure on us. Moreover, the main purpose of this match is to assess the strength of the blue lock." The assessment for these 5 individuals has already concluded. Ego said so. But if you think we shouldn't stop the match, will the world team lose? Henri asked in pursuit. It's impossible for them to lose. Besides Kira, the gap in physical abilities is absolute. Look, whether it's Ryosuke or Iki, just a few rounds of attacks have already drained their stamina. Moreover, their recent attack has almost exhausted their fuel. They gave it their all and at most slightly narrowed the gap. But the gap between them and their opponents remains insurmountable, it's that simple. Besides, the world teams didn't take this match seriously from the beginning. Ego spoke while keeping his eyes fixed on the screen. Although the world team was drenched in sweat, they were far from reaching their limits, while most members of the Blue Lock team seemed to be struggling with their stamina. Of course, except for Kira, who didn't seem fatigued at all. In a situation where the rest of his teammates were exhausted, could Kira possibly win against the world team? Although Ego had just given a negative answer, there was some doubt in his heart as well. How many miracles could Kira really create? Chapter 78, New Skill Unlocked. Cease the match. The broadcast echoed continuously on the field. We're not continuing. Kira and the others were still somewhat puzzled. TCH, just when it was starting to get interesting, it's over. Blake complained with some dissatisfaction. Since the broadcast says so, I guess I don't need to do any unnecessary work. Luna shrugged his shoulders. But I have to admit, the intensity of the match far exceeded my expectations. Was it due to the chain reaction triggered by that person named Kira? All of you are truly remarkable players. The outcome of the match was truly unpredictable. At that moment, Loki approached them and praised them without hesitation. His words were still polite, but they were completely different from before. He acknowledged the team's strength. 4 players of their caliber, being pushed to the point where they had to take it seriously by the Blue Lock team was already considered a loss. After saying these words, Loki walked directly up to Kira. Kira, it was a pleasure to compete against you. You're bound to shine in the world of football, maybe even surpassing me. I appreciate your kind words, but it's just luck. Kira modestly replied. Let's exchange contact information. Maybe we can have some exchanges in the field of football as well. If you ever have thoughts of playing in our league in the future, you can reach out to me. Sure, sounds good. Hey, got Loki asking for his contact information voluntarily. The rest of them looked at with eyes full of envy. I'm so envious, ah. After exchanging contact information, the World 5 prepared to leave and return to their hotel. Hey, guys, I apologize for what I said earlier. It was my mistake, Blake turned around and said to everyone before leaving. It was a very valuable match. Luna said with a smile. Loki, on the other hand, locked his gaze onto Kira's face and said slowly, until we meet again on the field. Yeah, goodbye, Kira nodded and responded to Loki's words. It was a challenge, and Kira gladly accepted it. Congratulations! You have earned 300 points. Acquired achievement, entering the world, engaged in a match with world-class players for the first time and achieved at least 1 goal/assist/steal/clearance. Daily point limit increased to 30 through training and received 1 mystery skill box. This match was where Kira earned the most points. Although it was just a 5v5 small-scale match, there was no doubt that it was because all the opponents were world-class players, and Kira's teammates also underwent further transformation in this match. If this match hadn't been prematurely terminated, perhaps Kira could have earned even more points. However, this reward is already quite substantial, and now he can increase the daily limit of points through training. Being able to earn 30 points per day means that Kira's duration in the practice space will be extended, and the efficiency of improving skill proficiency will also be enhanced. Soon, the World 5 left the field, while the rest of the players all found themselves lying on the ground simultaneously. Wow, so tired. I feel like my shoulders are about to break. They're so strong. I want to become that strong too. Even though I felt like I gave it my all, there's still a noticeable gap. The difference is really huge. That's why we need to practice hard. On Kira's face, a smile appeared as he looked at his teammates in front of him. Do you suddenly feel the urge to run a 5,000 meter race again? Bro, spare us. We'll die. Outside the Blue Lock, in a certain gymnasium. The match is over. Congratulations to Siren High School for making it to the finals of the preliminary elimination. As the sound of the broadcast echoed, Rico cheered excitedly. Under her leadership, the previously unknown Siren High School basketball team used their bombardment tactics to directly advance to the finals of the elimination round. If they win one more game, they will successfully enter the next round of the national championship. First stage goal, achieved. The finals are in 2 days. I wonder how is doing. Unable to contain her excitement, Riko immediately informed Kira about their team's victory. They had made a promise earlier that Kira would definitely come to watch Siren's match. Just after sending the message, she received a reply from Kira. Congratulations! I'll definitely come for the finals. Save me a spot. Oh, by the way, it's fine if I sit on the coach's bench. Just say I'm a logistics staff member. Okay. As Riko sent the message, a smile involuntarily appeared on her face. You see, Riko is definitely chatting with Kira again. Yet. Look at her love-struck expression. Tisk tisk tisk, so envious of that lovey-dovey atmosphere. Hey, aren't you guys tired of living? After the match today, you better run 5,000 meters for me. In the evening. With no matches happening recently, Kira and the others only needed to wait for the results of the remaining groups to be determined. In theory, a total of 7 groups would advance. Apart from Kira, 6 more groups needed to be selected. Following the rule that each group could only participate in 1 match per day, it would take a considerable amount of time, especially considering that they also needed to compete against those world-class players. Therefore, Kira and the others had a relatively long time to rest. Kira also learned about Siren, where Riko was, entering the finals. He had promised Riko that he would attend the finals, so he naturally wouldn't break his word. Therefore, he prepared to use his privilege to go out. Kira's match against Team V took place after he went out. In that match, he almost single-handedly crushed Team V's goal. In the subsequent 3v3 and 4v4 matches, Kira scored multiple times and had already accumulated 10 goals, allowing him to exchange for another outing. While others were engaged in free activities, Kira went to the cafeteria window and successfully exchanged for an outing pass. At the same time, the screen on the cafeteria wall lit up, projecting the appearance of Ego. Not bad today. Ego praised Kira. Although there was no change in his expression, Kira's performance had pleasantly surprised him. To suppress world-class stars as a regular high school player. Perhaps he could become the key to changing football in this country. It's just luck, and those stars weren't serious at all. Kira shrugged and looked up at Ego. According to what you told me earlier, there are no matches in the near future, so I should be able to go out, right? Well, of course you can. But which day are you planning to go out? Ego asked. The day after tomorrow, I guess. Overmorrow. Ego pondered for a moment, seemingly conflicted about something. After a few seconds, he continued. I'll give you 3 days off as compensation for ending the match early today. In theory, you should be doing English training these days, but based on your interactions with Team World, it doesn't seem necessary. I'll give you some extra time. I can't believe those words came out of Mr. Ego's mouth. Kira said with a smile. It was hard to believe that someone as strict as Ego would give him an additional 2 days off. He must have his own considerations. Indeed, just as Kira suspected, Ego had his own considerations. Let's leave together tomorrow morning. I happen to be going to the Football Association, so I'll give you a ride. After Ego finished speaking, the screen immediately turned black again. Kira didn't linger for long either. After taking a short rest, he returned to the field and began training. By accumulating points through exercise every day, Kira could prolong his stay in the practice space. After dual training in the real world and the practice space, he opened the system interface. Host, Kira Ryosuke. Competitiveness points, 300. Current skills. Thunder Breath, Total Concentration Breathing LV4 Proficiency, 8.34%. Thunder Breath, Thunderclap Flash LV3 Proficiency, 100%, Upgrade, 150 points. Thunder Breath, Rise Spirit LV3 Proficiency, 69.3%. Thunder Breath, Thunder Swarm LV3 Proficiency, 15.7%. After today's match, Kira earned 300 points, and through extensive practice, he raised the proficiency of Thunderclap Flash to 100%. Without much hesitation, he immediately upgraded Thunderclap Flash to LV4. Competitiveness points, 300. Competitiveness points, 150. Thunderclap Flash LV3 Thunderclap Flash LV4. The power of the skill would further increase, while the physical toll it exacted would be reduced. Now I have a decent amount of points, and the fixed points I can earn each day have also increased. I should be able to save some points to unlock a new skill. Kira's gaze continued to move and landed on the next skill that was still locked. Thunder Breath, Distant Thunder, locked, unlock, 200 points, and Thunder Swarm already unlocked. And his gaze continued to move. Mystery Skill Box. Kira was curious. This achievement unlocked a new skill, but he wasn't sure what its effects would be. Open the box. Congratulations! Skill unlocked, Transparent World. Transparent World. Kira was surprised because this was the highest realm that a swordsman in the world of Demon Slayer could achieve. This skill allowed the user to enhance their perception to an extraordinary level through focused methods. They could even observe the subtle movements of the opponent's lungs and muscles, enabling them to predict their actions. In the moment of using Transparent World, the heightened perception would make the user feel as if time was passing slower. In the world of Demon Slayer, only a few individuals could reach the realm of Transparent World. Yet, Kira had successfully acquired this skill. Transparent World LV1 Proficiency, 0%. With this skill, Kira's performance on the field will surely be further enhanced. Take, for example, his duel with Loki. Although Kira was able to surpass Loki in speed using Thunderclap Flash, he was still the one chasing after him. If he could fully master Transparent World, Kira could even accelerate before Loki and predict his attacking trajectory. It can be said that this is an absolute divine technique, and it will definitely yield remarkable results in future matches. Note: divine technique, /cheat technique. The next round is the team selection match, right? Kira muttered to himself. Although Ego has mentioned that after the second round of selections, the Blue Lock players will have the opportunity to participate in a training camp with world-class players, there is still a very important event before that. The selection of the Blue Lock 11 heroes. Under his planning, the Blue Lock will select a team from the 35 players who advance in this round to compete against the U20 national team. An SAE, hailed as a genius midfielder, will also participate in this match. Kira is not sure how this situation will develop, but one thing he can be certain of is that Ego is definitely planning something, and perhaps there will be some changes to the content of this match as well. The next morning, Kira arrived early at the exit of the Blue Lock. A black sedan was parked at the gate. Good morning, Kira. Anri stood in front of the car, smiling and greeting Kira. They had already met when they first arrived at the Blue Lock to surrender their phones and personal belongings. Anri was dressed in a black suit with a white shirt underneath. At only 22 years old, Anri had a delicate and adorable face that made her look like a high school girl. Being a new employee of the Football Association, she seemed quite young, but it also indicated that she possessed remarkable abilities. Good morning, Miss Anri. It's been a while. Are you and Mr. Ego going to work on something later? Kira politely greeted her. Anri was dressed very formally, and combined with Ego's mention of going to the Football Association, it should be related to something very important. Chapter 79, Dominated. Well, we're going to have a meeting with the top executives of the Football Association. Anri said with a smile. Let's go. Mr. Ego is already in the car. As she finished speaking, Anri immediately stepped forward and opened the car door for Kira. Thank you very much. Kira nodded and got into the car, where a slender man was already seated. Ego Jinpachi. It's been a long time since we've had a meaningful face-to-face meeting, hasn't it? Ego pushed his glasses up and turned to Kira. Since coming to the Blue Lock, Ego had only communicated with the players through cameras and screens and had never met them in person. His voice was deep, and he had a gloomy demeanor that made him the type of person strangers would try to avoid. Although Kira didn't fully agree with Ego's somewhat absurd football philosophy, he had to admit that Ego was indeed a capable person and someone who genuinely valued football. It has been some time indeed. Kira replied with a smile. Ego carefully scrutinized Kira for a few seconds, as if contemplating something, but in the end, he didn't say much. He simply turned his head and said to Anri. Anri, let's get ready to leave. About an hour later, Anri drove to the headquarters of the Football Association. Well, I'll go ahead. I have to pick someone up. Anri, you take Kira to his destination. Kira, I'll contact you again in 3 days. After leaving these few words, Ego simply got out of the car and walked into the building alone. After Henry inquired about Kira's destination, she started the car again and drove in that direction. Ego-san always seems very indifferent. Kira turned his head and said, but Ego's figure was already out of sight. That's true. Ego-san does have a very peculiar personality, but he really cares about football. Compared to those parasites in the Football Association. Haha, never mind, don't mind me. Henry realized she was being too talkative and quickly changed the subject. Although she was aware that the higher UPS in the Football Association were incompetent and only cared about their own interests, as a lowly employee, she couldn't freely express her opinions. Is the destination a gym? Aren't you going home first, Kira? Henry asked. I eat a gym, sounds familiar. I'm going to see my girlfriend first. Besides, I live alone now, so I'm not in a hurry to go back. Kira replied candidly. Today was the weekend, and Riko didn't have to go to school. She was still in the gym at her house, and in the afternoon, she would go to the stadium to prepare for the final training with the team before the match. Oh, a girlfriend, hey. Girlfriend. Kira, you have a girlfriend. Henry was somewhat surprised. Right, Miss Henry, look ahead. Look ahead. You're driving. Kira's eyes revealed a second expression of fear, the first being when he saw Riko's cooking. Oh, I'm really sorry. Henry quickly turned her gaze forward. Why are you so surprised, Miss Henry? I just didn't expect you to have a girlfriend at such a young age. You should be a high school student. It's quite normal at this age, isn't it? I never thought Miss Henry would be so conservative. Does that mean you've never been in a relationship? Well. As soon as the thought crossed her mind, Henry's face immediately turned red with embarrassment. Yes, Henry, female, 22 years old, and single. With her outstanding looks, she had no shortage of suitors. However, once others discovered her somewhat clumsy personality and her strong obsession with football, most of them chose to keep their distance. Miss Henry, don't cover your face. Hold on to the steering wheel, hold on to the steering wheel. Oh, sorry. Kira could feel that getting into Henry's car was the worst decision he had ever made in his life. Sweat was even starting to form on his forehead. After several tens of minutes, Henry finally arrived at their destination. Prior to this, Kira had called Riko to let her know that he was coming back early. Riko was already waiting at the entrance of the gym. This is it. Henry parked the car and then turned her head to look at Kira. So, this is Kira's girlfriend? She's quite beautiful. They really make a good-looking couple. Henry smiled and continued to scan the surroundings. She noticed that there was another man standing next to Riko. Wait a minute. Henry immediately recognized the person's identity. Kage Tora Aida. She quickly got out of the car and walked briskly towards Kage Tora. There seemed to be a gleam in her eyes. Excuse me, are you Kage Tora Aida, the senior player? Henry was aware of Kage Tora's identity. Although she was currently a member of the Football Association, she used to follow various sports events when she was younger. And Kage Tora was a former key member of the national basketball team. Although he had retired long ago, Kage Tora still had a considerable influence in the sports world. Many well-known athletes sought him out for personalized training schedules, and he had good relationships with many high-ranking officials in the sports industry. Ah, that's right. Kage Tora was startled by Henry's sudden reaction. Henry finally realized that the name of this gym sounded familiar. It turned out to be owned by Kage Tora. The person next to him should be Kage Tora's daughter. In a roundabout way, Kage Tora was Kira's future father-in-law. No wonder, the snobbish president of the Football Association had specifically instructed her and Ego to take care of Kira. So that's how it is. Henry didn't expect that Kira had this connection as well. Thank you for your help, Miss Henry. After getting out of the car, Kira greeted Henry before approaching Riko. At the same time, Riko's attention was fixed on Henry, and she couldn't help but glance down at her own chest. A world of difference. It was like comparing a straight line with a curve of enormous amplitude. Riko involuntarily took a step back. Well then, I'll take my leave. We'll be in touch later. Henry waved goodbye to Kira and drove away. Who was that just now? Riko turned her head to look at Kira and immediately asked, pouting slightly, as if feeling jealous. She's one of the staff members at the Blue Lock. They happened to be passing by and gave me a ride back. Kira answered promptly. Oh, I see. Riko nodded, her straightforward personality not dwelling on it. At the same time, a smile of anticipation appeared on her face. Kira. You must be hungry since you've just come back. I've prepared a very sumptuous lunch for you. I made everything myself. Everything. Kira's pupils shook, and he turned his head slightly to look at Kage Tora. But Kage Tora had an expression that seemed to say, if you don't eat it, who will? This is the lunch my precious daughter made for you. Make sure to eat every single bit of it. Headquarters of the Football Association, conference room. Superstar demands an appearance fee of 100 million? And an additional 1 million bonus for every goal scored. How much more money are you going to spend on this ridiculous plan? They can't possibly win. What's the point of doing this? Explain yourself. The executives of the Football Association questioned Ego with displeasure. They had only recently learned about the enormous expenses he had created, and they viewed it as nothing short of a folly. At that moment, Ego nonchalantly sat in his chair, looking indifferent as he faced the people in front of him. A jade stone needs carving to become a gem. I want them to experience the world-class level at this sensitive age of theirs. I don't expect middle-aged people like you, who have already learned to give up, to have any dreams left. So shut up. Ego showed no respect to these executives and ruthlessly mocked them. You impolite brat. Several individuals became furious and stood up from their seats. All right, all right. Just then, a corpulent man cleared his throat, and the chaotic noise in the room quieted down. The president of the Football Association, Burtsuda Hirotoshi. I say, Ego, let's put an end to the Blue Lock project. We have received numerous complaints from parents of high school students who are participating in the project. Moreover, the plan lacks transparency, and we can't see the full picture. You haven't presented any tangible results either. If we continue like this, it will only become a stain on our reputation. Besides, we've already poured a considerable amount of money into it. Although Hirotoshi provided various reasons, his true intention was crystal clear: the Blue Lock project had not brought any substantial benefits to the Football Association. First of all, regarding the money, 2 of the 5 players have already chosen to waive their compensation. Ego pushed his glasses and a smile seemed to appear on his face. 2 players have waived their compensation. Confusion appeared on the faces of the people present. That's right, because I signed contracts with them. If they lose, they won't receive a penny. Strictly speaking, they haven't lost, but still, 2 players have waived their compensation. Ego stood up and simultaneously turned on the large screen, playing a secret video. What you're about to see is an extremely confidential video. Technically, it should never be leaked as it could affect the player's market value. After you're done watching, I will destroy it. The gaze of the crowd focused on the large screen, and the footage gradually became clear. In the video, it showed a segment of a face-to-face duel between Loki and Kira. Loki displayed astonishing speed, but he couldn't get past Kira. It was just a short segment, but it was enough to cause a huge uproar. A superstar of Loki's caliber was actually stopped by a high school player. Is it real or fake? Loki must have let him win. The footage must have been sped up. Like a bomb exploding among these executives, they began discussing it fervently. There are other players in the background of the footage. We can compare their movements to determine if the video was sped up, you idiots. After playing the segment, Ego promptly turned off the video. Not only this segment but also footage of Kira and others confronting and gaining an advantage over top-level players had been recorded. However, it absolutely couldn't be released. Once it was released, it would undoubtedly have a significant impact on these top players' public opinion. Hirotoshi's expression turned serious. He hadn't anticipated such a turn of events. That's just a part of it. Let me show you the real results. Ego extended a finger. Let's have a match, the Blue Lock representative team against the U20 representative team. Upon hearing Ego's words, Hirotoshi furrowed his brows deeply. Nonsense. What makes those high school players from the Blue Lock project capable of playing against the U20 elites? Even though he had just witnessed unbelievable footage, Hirotoshi still viewed this plan as unreliable. Because it didn't benefit him in any way. I contacted someone who also wants to participate in this match, Ego said, and at that moment, a person strode into the room. Itoshi Sae. He disregarded all the executives present, as if they were meaningless entities, and walked straight to Ego. A cunning smile appeared on the latter's face. Idoshi Sae will represent the U20 team in this match, Ego added. If we lose the game, then I agree to terminate the Blue Lock project. Meanwhile, Hirodoshi's mind was racing. Through these words, he caught a whiff of opportunity. Previously, Sae had asked him for the Blue Lock match footage, but Hirotoshi hadn't expected that he would. Now, Sae, who had already made a name for himself on the international stage, could finally play in the domestic league. This would undoubtedly ignite public opinion. With just a few manipulations, Sae's appearance could continuously fill Hirodoshi's pockets with money. Moreover, the U20 team consisted of the elite young players of the entire country. It would be a piece of cake to defeat the Blue Lock team composed entirely of forwards. By winning the game, they could openly shut down the Blue Lock project, making Ego and his plan a laughingstock in sports history. Why wouldn't he seize this opportunity? Creators' thoughts. Hit _me _if _you _can hit _me _if _you _can. Like it. Add to library. Like it. Add to library. Comment. 9 comment. Vote. Chapter 80, I want to play football with this guy. This choice had no downsides for Hirotoshi. In fact, it had visible benefits aplenty. That's fantastic. I agree to this plan. Hirotoshi exclaimed excitedly, clapping his hands. Idoshi Sae joining our U20 team will undoubtedly elevate our strength to a whole new level. You've got it all wrong. I've seen the footage, both from Blue Lock and U20. Your football is nothing more than the vomit of alcoholics, utterly worthless. In short, you're all a bunch of waste, Sae said expressionlessly, exuding unparalleled arrogance in his every move. Ego heard Sae's words but didn't show any particular reaction. The other executives present clearly felt displeased with Sae's arrogant attitude. However, Sae didn't care about their opinions. I have one condition for participating in this match. I'm interested in someone and want to play football with him, that's all, Sae said slowly. Whoever it is, I can arrange for them to join you. Hirotoshi immediately responded. Kira Ryosuke, Sae uttered the name slowly. Upon hearing Sae's words, the entire room fell into a state of astonishment, including Ego. Earlier, Ego had learned of Sae's interest in the Blue Lock project, so he deliberately facilitated Sae's participation in this match through contacting his agent, creating the best stage for the Blue Lock project. However, he hadn't anticipated that Sae would specifically request to be teammates with Kira. But it made sense. Currently, within the Blue Lock, the only person who could capture Sae's attention was Kira. What a bold request, Ego said with a smile. The rest of the trash is meaningless to me. I'm only interested in that guy. That's the sole reason for my participation, Sae's expression remained unchanged. If it can't be done, then I'll decline, he added. Ego, you should know what to do, right? Hirotoshi turned his head to stare at Ego. Of course, after all, I understand my situation, I have no choice. Ego pushed his glasses up once again. Kira could be considered the ace of Blue Lock, but he was also the biggest thorn within Blue Lock. His football philosophy was almost entirely different from Ego's, yet he still held the dominant position within Blue Lock with absolute superiority. Ego also wanted to see with his own eyes what kind of sparks would be created by these two completely different football philosophies in this match. Moreover, during this time, Ego could sense that it wasn't just Kira's teammates who were growing stronger, their opponents were also constantly evolving. When they learned that Kira would become the enemy of the entire Blue Lock, it might trigger further transformation in these individuals. Even without Kira, Blue Lock still had a chance of victory. It might even lead to the emergence of a new miracle. Okay, I will inform Kira Ryosuke about this news when the time comes, Ego replied. After everyone struggled to finish their lunch, Riko had already gone to the kitchen to wash the dishes. Meanwhile, Kira saw Riko busy and sat down next to Kage Tora. Kagetora-san, can we talk for a moment? He asked. Oh? What's the matter? Kage Tora inquired. I want to discuss something about tomorrow's match. Kira's expression became serious. Because he knew that their next opponent in match was none other than Kirisaki Daiichi Hai. Their team's ace player was Makoto Hanamiya, one of the uncrowned kings alongside Teppei, who was known as the Bad Boy. In the original story, Siren eventually defeated their opponents, but Teppei suffered a serious injury during that match, which even affected his basketball career. Although Siren came close to advancing in the round robin that year, they ultimately failed to win a game in the next round due to Teppei's absence. This was the doing of Makoto. He had a vicious playing style and would employ various dirty tactics on the court, causing injuries to players from every team that faced Kirisaki Daiichi High. And it wasn't just Makoto, the entire Kirisaki Daiichi High team could be described as extremely malicious. Using unethical means to achieve victory was something that Kira despised. I've heard about Kirisaki Daiichi High and their first-year player, Makoto. There are some bad rumors surrounding them. Kira proceeded to share some of the information he knew with Kage Tora, whose expression turned serious. Generally, in tournaments of this scale, the Basketball Association didn't pay much attention. There weren't many referees, and the level of professionalism didn't compare to the national championships. The equipment was also relatively outdated. Kage Tora was a person of great integrity, and he wouldn't use his personal connections to give the team privileges just because his daughter was the coach of Siren. However, causing harm to players' health was an absolute sore spot for Kage Tora. As a former professional player and trainer, he detested such behavior. Is everything you said true? Kage Tora's expression was unusually serious, and there seemed to be a hint of anger in his voice. Well, these incidents have been documented before, but since this is a regional tournament, the impact has been relatively small, so it didn't cause much of a stir, Kira said slowly. I'll contact a friend later to arrange for more referees in the finals. Although I can't be certain of the authenticity, it's better to be safe than sorry. I absolutely won't allow such violations of sports ethics to happen. I'll also have someone investigate them afterward. Kage Tora nodded, speaking with great seriousness. Yes, uncle, I'm counting on you. At that moment, Riko, wearing an apron, came out of the kitchen. The dishes are all washed. Later, I'll take them to the gym for their final practice. Kira, do you want to come along? Sure. Kira responded with a smile. Soon, Kira followed Riko to the Siren gym. He didn't disturb the training of others, but did his own physical exercises. While improving his physical strength, he also successfully gained 30 points. While exercising, Kira quietly used Transparent World ability to observe the training of other players. As if the flow of time had slightly slowed down, Kira could roughly capture the movements of every muscle on each person's body. He could even predict their next move based on the trends of their muscle movements. He could see the sweat pores of the players clearly. That was the power of Transparent World. However, this only lasted for a few seconds. Kira clearly felt a dizzy sensation and his eyes became sore. I feel a bit dizzy. Is it a side effect of the Transparent World? Maintaining the state of the Transparent World for a long time does indeed cause significant mental exhaustion. Moreover, my observation of muscle movements is not precise enough. I still have a long way to go before reaching the true mastery. But with increased proficiency and level, this negative effect should be alleviated to some extent. Kira thought to himself while closing his eyes and resting for a few minutes. His condition improved significantly. He opened the system interface and noticed that his proficiency in the Transparent World had only increased by 0.001%. Although this skill was powerful, it seemed that there was still a long way to go to fully master it. It required more effort compared to other skills. Kira immediately exchanged the points he had just obtained for the practice space and entered it. Here, not only could various sports equipment be provided, but it could even project the appearances of world-renowned athletes, simulating their movements. And this was a great opportunity for Kira to practice Transparent World. Let's do this! Kira smiled faintly, and before him, the figure of Loki appeared. Transparent World. The next morning, it was the day of the decisive match for Siren Basketball Club. Only by winning this game could Siren advance to the next round of the round robin. Riko had already taken the players to the venue, but Kira chose to meet up with them later and didn't go together. On one hand, Kira didn't want to disturb Siren's players during their practice. On the other hand, he went to a nearby sports store and bought some protective gear for Siren's players to ensure their safety. After purchasing the necessary equipment, Kira hurriedly made his way towards the venue where the finals were being held. Just as he passed by the entrance of the venue, a tall figure happened to run out from inside. The person was well-built and stood over 2 meters tall. Although Kira managed to avoid a direct collision in the first instant, the sudden appearance of the other person still caused their sides to brush against each other. Kira was unharmed, but the giant man almost lost his balance and stumbled. "I'm really sorry. Are you okay?" Kira immediately apologized. "Oh, it's fine. It's my fault. I didn't watch where I was going. This should be the entrance, right?" "I went the wrong way," the man replied in a somewhat lazy tone. "No problem. I'll take my leave then," Kira said. Kira felt that the man's appearance seemed familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. However, he didn't dwell on it and continued on his way, jogging towards the venue where Siren was about to play. The tall man, on the other hand, stared blankly at Kira's retreating figure, his eyes filled with a hint of surprise. "Hey, Atsushi, you've gone to the wrong place again, haven't you?" At that moment, a dark-skinned boy hurriedly approached from another direction, seemingly urging the man. "I'm sorry, I just went to the wrong venue and had to turn back. I almost got knocked over by that person I just passed by," the man, Atsushi, replied. "You really have no sense of direction. And what are you saying? You, being knocked over by someone? Come on, that person was a head shorter than you." "No, it's true." Atsushi looked in the direction where Kira had just gone, and he himself found it hard to believe. But in that brief moment, he felt as if he had collided with a massive boulder. Kira quickly arrived at the venue of the match and handed over the protective gear he purchased to the Siren team. He informed them about some dirty tactics that Kirisaki Daiichi might use and urged them to be careful. With a defensive mindset and the added protection of the gear, the chances of Siren's players getting injured significantly decreased. Moreover, under the arrangement of Cage Tora, the number of referees for this match increased from 1 to 3. The reason why Makoto rarely received fouls despite their malicious intent to injure players was because someone from their team deliberately obstructed the referee's view. However, with the increase in the number of referees, it became almost impossible for them to employ such tactics. The match started quickly, and Siren soon gained the upper hand with their exquisite skills and clever teamwork. As the match reached its final stages, Makoto entered the court, which meant that Kirisaki Daiichi was preparing to use those despicable tactics, even if it meant injuring Siren's players at the cost of losing the game. However, thanks to Kira's warning, the Siren players were all prepared and were not harmed by Hayami's tricks. Furthermore, due to the increased number of referees, Makoto's foul play was clearly seen by the officials. Several players were penalized and even some were directly expelled from the game for flagrant fouls. Kira took the opportunity to capture the details of the match using his phone and recorded all the dirty tricks employed by Kirisaki Daiichi's players on the court. He promptly uploaded the footage online. Kira already had a considerable number of followers on social media, including basketball enthusiasts and even spectators present at the venue. Without the need for any explanation, these video clips alone were enough to expose Kirisaki Daiichi's foul play, and the incident quickly gained attention on the internet. Inside the arena, there was hardly any suspense. Siren easily won the match with a lead of over 10 points. Congratulations to Siren for their victory and securing a spot in the national finals. The resounding announcement echoed throughout the arena.
Thanks for listening.